Welcome everybody to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 372, Sack, Flag, Sack, Flag. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside Anthony Fitzpatrick and Ashley Soden. How you doing, boys?
I wish it was the good version of that title, because sack, flag, usually when I'm playing is a good thing, but alas, yesterday it was not. And it still hurts. Like we were discussing quickly off the air. It feels weird to be 1-2 against the division right now when last year we were sporting, we went 6-0. The year before that, I think we were 5-1. The fact that we've got more in division losses this season we have in the past two seasons just feels weird. We're sport like that now, and maybe this will be a good kick in the teeth, but at the same time, we nearly won this game. If you look at obviously the scoreboard says that. We nearly won the game, and yet so much went wrong. That's the kind of team we are now, where it has to be a cataclysm of errors for us to lose like this.
Yeah, no Monday, which is not a victory Monday, is a nice Monday. So yeah, just gotta let it sink in, really, and shit happens in the NFL.
Absolutely right. We're going to go through a little bit of news, mainly about injuries. We do have a press conference in about half an hour from Dan Campbell, so we're going to find out probably halfway through a bit more about those injuries, but that is what it is. Then we'll go through some of the stats about this game, some of the themes, stock up, stock down, and then we'll talk briefly about the rest of the weekend's games. Instead of going through a drive summary, I think this is something which more deserves a kind of holistic look at a few different things. What happened? How did it happen? Why did it happen? And what do we do now? So we're going to try and answer those questions as we go. But first, do join our Discord channel. Even in a loss, it's a really good place. It's a good therapy session. It's a good place to be if you want to join a cool Lions community. So link is in the live chat right now, and it is in the audio pod description too. College football podcast and coming up, and another few sackings in the world of college football. Hugh Freeze is gone.
Yeah, it's that time of year now. A lot of teams' seasons are over, so you sack your head coach, you get a jump on some of the possible candidates out there. It's that time. So yeah, a lot going on. But this week, in a week of bad news, we are going to choose to focus on the positive, and we're looking in particular at one team from every conference who has surpassed our expectations and who is doing really well, and we're going to deep dive into them to see what those programs are doing right and why they should deserve more love. So we're going to have a nice happy theme for the college pod this week.
We need to counterbalance this show, so I think that's quite healthy. Do like this episode, sub to the podcast. You guys know what to do and how much that means to us, and if you want to financially contribute, then I'm sure you've listened to the show before. You know how to do that too. Thank you in advance. And thank you for the people on the live show yesterday who contributed generously. That was much appreciated, especially given everything we were going through. I say that like someone was dying, which definitely didn't happen, but lots of people did get injured for this game. Linebacker Ty Summers was elevated for the game. He was one of the guys who actually went down, got a thumb injury on a kick return, didn't appear as though he came back. I believe he's been injured already this season, so it's not exactly ideal for him. No?
He was the guy we signed to the 53 to replace Zach Cunningham when Zach Cunningham's going through his hamstring injury. And then because him and Zach Cunningham came back, and now seemingly he's now been injured. So that linebacker 6 parts of the joke yesterday, the one that's special teams mainly, is seemingly cursed.
And then inactive for this game, Craig Reynolds with the hamstring injury. Quinton Jefferson, Chris Smith's on there, but he's not on the 53. Pretty sure. Anyway,
probably should listed him.
Oh, all right. DB Eric Hallett, safety Kirby Joseph, and safety Jamie. I keep calling him Jamie Robinson. Injured in this game, Christian Mahogany, guard with a bad knee injury. Quote, he's going to be out for a while, but it's presumed not season-ending. Take of that what you will. I would read into it maybe coming back for the last couple of games of the regular season optimistically, but it could mean coming back for the playoffs if we get there. And I say if because that's very much in the balance. Guard Tate Ratledge also left the game briefly with a shoulder injury. He returned, but it didn't look great for him, so we'll see what the post-mortem is with that. Taylor Decker had a knee injury after being rolled up on return to the game, but unclear if he was severely hurt or not. He noted himself that he's on a huge amount of pain medication for his shoulder, and therefore, he was unaware of how much he'd hurt his knee. Ash has corrected himself. It's not Chris Smith, it's Meki Wingo. Thank you. I knew I wasn't going crazy.
I put it and I was like, well, POD said it.
I'm used to you being so anally correct that I doubted myself. Just goes to prove that I can beat Rain Man sometimes. Anyway, Penny Sewell did not miss a snap. Worth mentioning only because of, I believe, flags or some other reason why he didn't miss a legal snap. He did leave the game and he came back in. I think it was the end of the quarter, potentially, went to the locker room and then came back out holding his shoulder. Looked like a bad injury, but he's an absolute warrior. Cornerback Terrion Arnolds, who was listed as questionable pre-game, then came into the game and then did leave with a back injury, stretched out, came back into the game. Of course, he had the pick. He had another good PBU. Don't listen to PFF in terms of how good he was or not. Yes, he got stiff-armed to the head in a fairly embarrassing way. That's happened before to Lions corners. But it was a rebound game for me, for Terrion Arnolds. And I've already mentioned Ty Summers. Boys, whatever happened in this game, however badly or not we played, we've got a lot of players on IR, but not a huge amount of players of consequence. This was 4 different offensive linemen all going down with some form of injury. All 4 of them look like it could potentially be serious injuries for a while. We have no idea how long some of them are going to be out, if they're going to be out at all. All 4 of them could miss next week. Who knows? This is close to disaster territory as much as it can get. We're 5-3, but as I was just saying to you in the pre-show, if we're missing all these 4 for any length of time, you can almost start writing up the gravestone on the Lions season, because we saw what happens with Goff when he's not especially well protected, and that's just with all 5 of them being there and not playing well. God forbid what's going to happen if some of them don't play.
Yeah, the prospects of having our starting 5 next week be Dan Skipper, Katie Oshika, Graham Glasgow, be ever present somehow, but the Tristan Colon, and then at right tackle Devon Cochran. Jesus, that's not good. And yeah, we saw what happened this week, even with 5 there. And as we get on to the bit, the way that the Vikings, for once, their blitz scheme worked. I know the Commanders aren't exactly the best team, especially with all the injuries they've got, but the one thing they do well is that both their linebackers can blitz and simulate pressures, and that pretty damn well. Like, God, it's coming up against my least favorite player in the NFL this upcoming week now with Frankie Luvu, the guy who's made it his mission to blitz from the linebacker position. That's his best stat, though sometimes, as we know, he does it off the ball when he's not supposed to. Yeah, not happy at all, especially since not just with the pass protection. How the fuck are they going to run block as well?
And how are you feeling about injuries, man?
Yeah, it's kind of numb to it by now at this point. Obviously, we had it last year. Now we've got it this year. But unfortunately, and people won't want to hear this, it is part and parcel of the game, and you've got to find ways to overcome it. You've got to try and find ways to carry on going, because this is going to happen. We've been very lucky with offensive line injuries for years now. And, this may sound harsh, but we're going to start now reaping the rewards of not really properly developing any good young depth behind these guys. Get 2 of the guys are rookies starting, but, we're going to have a bunch of journeymen and part-time guys who are not going to be in there. And if you're already saying our season's dead when we're sat here at 5-3, then it's like, Christ, that's a waste of a year when all these rookie contracts are not kicking in. You've got to be better prepared against it. We've got a trade deadline coming up in 24 hours, so you're definitely not dead and dusted if you want to be. Like this, you're going to have to find ways around it. It is the unfortunate nature of the NFL, and you've got to keep going. So, in Penny's case, he carried on playing, which is great. I think Ratledge came back in. You've still got Graham there. Taylor's still going to play through hell or high water. So, there's only one of them who's definitely out for a while. The other three might be perfectly fine, given all that's said and done. So, you've just got to carry on trucking with it, and if a hole emerges, get it filled if you've got the opportunity to, and move on. So, we're not the only team struggling with injuries, and we won't be the last one this year. So it's annoying, it's pain in the neck, and it's come at the worst possible time and at the worst possible position for us. And it is a pain, but yeah, we have avenues to get out of this if we want to. We're now going to see just how concerned they are and what they're willing to do to solve it.
And you have been calling the last 24 hours, or less than 24 hours, but since the game finished for the team to be active at the deadline. Of course, the trade deadline is tomorrow. I'm going to take a swing and say it's 4 p.m. Eastern, because it always seems to be 4 p.m. Eastern as a deadline good. If the Lions are active, if they do make any sort of relatively major swing, we will go live very briefly to talk about that, so you can expect to see us here. I would say either a big name, even if for a low round pick, or a high round pick for anyone, I think we'll go live for. If it's a pick swap for a nobody, I'm not going to waste our time talking about that, because we can do it on the next show. But do look out for us tomorrow if something does happen. Ash, would you be in favour of, if there is any sort of long-term concern for any of these guys, trying to fill it through the trade?
Potentially. The issue is, what we really need is offensive linemen, and they're one of the least traded positions. It's usually wide receivers, as we damn well know. Trinity Benson, Donovan Peoples-Jones. We know offensive linemen, and there's definitely people out there. No, it's come out in the past couple of hours that the Commanders are supposedly shopping a couple of days in Nick Allegretti and Andrew Wiley. They would be nice, but will they do it when we're about to play them? I don't know. Evan Neal is another name that's popped up recently with where the Giants are. Fits the bill of what we usually do, but it's going to be the price, because offensive linemen are so rare in this league that, yeah, even guys like that who are, let's be frank, below average starters in this league will probably still command a day 2 pick, because every team ends offensive line. So if we can pull it off, depends on obviously what Jerry's doing, because he said in the last couple of minutes the Cowboys completed the trade for an instant starter. Then yeah. I'm thinking it's Trey Hendrickson, to be honest. That's by the by. But yeah, if we can do it, if Brad can work some magic and get someone in who can be an adequate starter for as long as we need them, and then if they're on an expiring contract, do what the Eagles have done today, and even if they net us a 5th in the comp pick next year, that's okay. But it won't be a big name, because teams don't trade their starting offensive linemen unless something major's going on. So it's going to be like an Evan Neal, an Andrew Wiley, an Allegretti, someone like that who won't really move the needle in terms of, wins above placements and that, but yeah, can fill one of those 5 offensive lineman spots and just be okay there. Then I'm happy.
Is there anyone in particular, Ant, you've got in mind as someone that you'd like to bring in via trade? I know it's hard to kind of have any names in mind in particular sometimes, because there's so many players in this league and so many teams. Zig when you should zag. We're hearing, the media are hearing that the Browns are buyers at the deadline. Why? And yet there are other teams out there who are potentially winning teams who are shedding some players. The Patriots come to mind. So it's not altogether straightforward to find those trade targets. Is there anyone you've got in mind?
Well, like you say, you don't know who's selling at this point in time. You kind of feel like the deadline should be maybe a few weeks further in the future rather now. So you got teams who are really going to tank at it. Because, are the Bengals, are they going to give up on the season and start tanking because their conference is so close? Their division's so close, even though they should probably be selling, are they just going to pretend that everything's all right and they're going to go for it? You don't know really who's going to be available for them. But, I think Evan Neal would be a nice addition here. I think if you can get him in, obviously he's versatile at where he can play. And, I trust Hank to get the best out of these guys. You saw what Stoutland did with Becton in Philly. Like he was just considered a complete and utter bust when they took him there, and he just not lived up to his expectations because Evan Neal has not lived up to his expectations in the league. And then he's had injury worries like Becton did, inconsistent play. Good O-line coaches can take that raw talent and make something work with them. So Hank, I would hope, will be able to do the same with Evan. But outside of that, I don't know for me if it's specific players at the minute. I just hope they're busy about it and they're on the front foot about it. I don't want them to take the attitude, oh, well, there's no one there, so we're not even going to bother. Like, no, you've got to go out there and as I say, you've got to go and try and fix this. Again, we can't just sit here and go, oh, fine, we'll wait for Manu to come back in 4 weeks, or we'll wait on the guys we've got here and see what happens because things are going to fall apart quickly. If we are going to say the O line's out for the season and we're going to give up, then we should be selling at the deadline because we're going to give up on the year. We should be stockpiling assets. So I don't want to get into that rhythm. This is the worry that I've had. People going, the window's big, the window's long, we're going to be competitive for the next 50 years. Yeah, well, then you get situations like this where some people go, oh, well, screw it. Yeah, give up the season now because there'll always be next year. And we're getting into this cycle now. We've seen it more and more and more. So Brad needs to go out and he needs to at least if he goes out there and it's a case of every team's asking for a first round pick for anyone decent, then fine. I can understand that. But as long as the discussions have been had and the attempts have been made, and there will be teams selling out there. There are some absolutely horrific teams in this league, like the Saints and teams like that, like Cesar Ruiz. I know he's injured, but just theoretically, there's no you're telling me you can't go there and say to them, look, you're trash. Well, don't say that to them, but you're a bad team. You need to sell. Let us have him. We'll give you something for him. But you can go out there and get some of these teams to part with their players. There will be some teams whose organizations are ending in terms of the current GM, the structure, who will need to rebuild it from rock bottom. And you've got to go out there and exert some pressure on them. So, they just can't sit pat here. We are not a massively injured team right now. What have we got to come back? DJ Reed and Kirby, really, and Malcolm. But we're not waiting for like 20 impact players anymore like we were at the start of the season. We're getting a lot of our guys back. We can't just wait on what we've got here. So, yeah, he just needs to be incredibly active with this. And we got holes all over. It's not just the O-line. Maybe you need some secondary cover. I don't think the edge stuff is really that viable anymore, but there are places where you could do with some depth still at least. Even if it's not a big move, even if it's not O-line, just show that you're interested in going to the Super Bowl.
I have a look at Howie Roseman and the way that he operates, and I think that the Eagles have become defined by these low day 3 picks that they trade for impact players who may be only 1-year rentals or ring chasers or what have you, but they come in, make an impact, leave. But they do other things too, and what Philly does really well is they are always contenders in transition. People talk about going in transition either from being contenders to not being, or from going in the opposite direction from being maybes to being contenders. But you can still be in transition at the top or at the bottom. And Howie manages to fail quickly in the way that they get rid of people that they end up not wanting to get, and maybe they don't get much compo for that either, but what that allows them to do is that gives them then the firepower to go after those 1-year vet players. Trading away players for 6th or 7th round picks in order to use them to get other players is a good idea. So I think that I haven't seen us do enough of either trading away or trading in, but it's about being savvy with it. And actually, I think it's one of the things that Brad Holmes has proven he's actually not that good at is the in-season trades. Because I think some of the pre-draft trades have been really good. The one with the Vikings springs to mind where we got Jameson Williams for 32 and 34. But this sort of trade deadline stuff, he's either unwilling or unable to do this well at the moment until otherwise seen.
And the one thing the Phillies do really well, the Eagles, I don't know why I'm calling them their baseball team, but they, play the comp market well Like, we've been told, like, they've traded away a third pick today. They could get a third for this guy next year if he plays well, but they've got like 3 or 4 comp picks coming this year anyhow to supplement what they do because this guy's like Sweat and that who are really
Milton
good,
Williams,
great
yeah.
players, and they're just not paying them. Unfortunately for us as the Lions, we're paying every single prospect we have, like all of them, and people want us to pay all our prospects. What Brad is going to have to start doing well is that someone like a Branch or a Campbell or a Laporte is going to have to start going, and we're going to have to start recompiling assets from them to be able to do some more of this wheeling and dealing. 'Cause we're short on draft picks this year because of all the shit he did in the draft, which is hampering our ability to go in here. But the Eagles have got like 3 comp picks coming up, meaning they can play with the ones they've got because they're going to replenish them. Whereas we're just paying everyone left, right, and centre. And I know Lions fans love having their own young players and paying them all and everything. And everyone wants to pay Jack the biggest linebacker contract in history and Brian. And you're going to have to get used to the fact, and Brad's going to have to get used to the fact that eventually they've got to start letting some of them go. And they've got to start playing this market better to give themselves the assets to move around on deadline day better because that £1 billion that we've committed to our young players so far, what's that going to get us this year if the offensive line's hurt? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And, Brad needs to stop this. We've got to stop paying players game-changing contracts all the time, and we've got to do what Philly do and say, look, it's a risk. We'll get rid of them. We'll lose them. But, they're doing their job this year. They let the D-line go last year. They're not doing so well this year. So what have they done? They've done out and got Jalen Phillips to replenish their roster because it's not worked with the youngsters as they hoped. So that's good business. That is what we have failed to do at this point in time. And we only have so many picks and stuff to work with here, which is hindering the ability to deal with situations like this. The Eagles have all this ammunition to patch up their roster. We don't. And that's going to be what defines them and us.
I think there's 2 different trades through recent NFL history that I have in mind here, and they're both for receivers, but they work for any position, right? The first one is the Vikings trading away Stephon Diggs. Mm-hmm. So that trade was Diggs to the Bills for and a 7 for a
first.
It was a 1, a 5, a 6, and then a 4 the year afterwards. That first became Justin Jefferson. So they got a 4. So they got a 5, a 6, and then a 4 the year afterwards to transition from Diggs to Jefferson. And obviously Jefferson wasn't Diggs overnight, but was very quickly better than him. You can be that team that kind of decides at the point at which something has gone too far for them, and you transition and you do it in an incredibly good manner. And the way that we draft, ignoring 24, but there's a good amount of data which suggests that we're actually quite good at drafting. So it's not the worst thing to stockpile picks. You could be Minnesota from that 2020 draft. Or you could be the Tennessee Titans trading away AJ Brown to the Eagles for a flat first-round pick and then drafting Treylon Burks. It is a high-risk strategy to get rid of proven talent for picks. But what it does do is it makes you cheap and it rewards the teams who actually draft well. Which is a strength of ours. If we actually want to commit to being a great team long-term, it is a solid strategy for this team. Especially because we're good at the drafting in the draft and not the trading at the deadline. So decide who you want to be. And maybe this is a conversation for pre-draft, when we all know what's happened come March time. But it feels like we haven't quite decided what franchise we want to be. We've got a direction, and everyone's pulling in the same direction, but there's a point at which we need to decide how we're going to go from everyone agrees this team's a contender, and if everything aligns, we could win it, to they are a favourite for the Super Bowl, and we feel very, very good about this. Because they ain't there yet.
I mean, yeah, you're right. And it is at that point now where we don't need to be great at every single draft right now. We've built our team. We had to build the team through the draft. We've built the team. We've got God knows how many players on massive deals now and a load more about to do that. It's all right just saying, let's go to the draft every year and do it. But, I talked long ago about the method you have of getting to the Super Bowl. You get 90% of the way to get into the Super Bowl building your way and doing what you do. Are you willing to get that last 10% to get there, to move away from what you do and be able to take that final step, supplement your squad correctly, get the right vets in, be able to do it, and not just have it in-house guys doing this work all the time, which is not your motto, but that is what generally the best teams will do. We see the Eagles do it. Like, they are very much built through the draft. Like, that defense that started this year was pretty much every single draft pick of their own. But they are now going out and supplementing that with guys from the outside because it's not quite working. They're not just sticking with these guys and going, oh, they'll all be good, or we'll just call it a day and we'll wait till next year. They've been active about fixing the holes around it and getting it sorted. We're at that final 10% now where we've got to decide, are we just going to carry on doing this and be a really good team but not really go for it, or are we going to be willing to take a risk to get that final 10% of the way there?
Yeah.
That's where we're at right now, and that's where Brad, they've got to stop being so pig stubborn about this. And I don't believe it's Brad. I think because Dan said it the other day, he says, I don't think there'll be any additions, but Brad keeps giving me names. So I think there's actually, for the first time, a difference between these two in how they do it. Dan is loyal to his players. I think Brad does want to bring guys in and does acknowledge there's problems on this roster. And, this is where we've got to get this sorted. Those two need to say, look, okay, we'll bring guys in from outside the building to supplement our roster and get to where we want to. You don't have to give them 10-year deals. You don't have to commit a ton of your wage to them. You can buy them as a rental. You can give them a 1 or 2-year deal and then deal them away next summer. It's possible to do this sort of stuff. That's where we're at right now, and that's the problem they're going to have to overcome. You've got to get that last 10%. You've got to go away from what has worked for you to do it.
I guess I wasn't trying to make the case of not doing it now. What I meant was he hasn't shown he can do it yet, so show me you can do it. It's more of laying down the gauntlet to say, do it.
Exactly.
Let's see it.
When do you start it? This is the year. Like last year, even against the Commanders, it was the first time, and this comes out to the whole mentality. This is my big worry about the team here is we were favourites last year against Washington. This team is built on an underdog mentality. The whole world is against it, thinks it's going to lose, and they're going to prove them wrong. They're not that anymore. They're the hunted. They're people who are going to come and give their best shot. And you looked at that Washington team and went, gee whiz, look what they are. They're what we were. And we weren't able to deal with the pressure of being favourites. We didn't have that mentality in us to be able to do it. Which proves to me now that I think we're at that pivotal point where we've done as much as we can on this system we've used. And now, you've got to get other guys in the building to come and help you who will have that more laissez-faire, I've been there, I've done that, let's get this all done together because, again, it's just that mentality of the last 10% where you're at. And I think we've now hit that ceiling and we know we're there. And now's the time for us to change what we're doing. And it won't be a bad thing. So again, we're not compromising the future. We're making sure the now is as successful as we can be.
I do wonder, with it being a collaborative process, whether it's not just Brad and Dan being the guys in the room, because part of me thinks that how the contracts are going to work out is a very highly curated puzzle, which Mike Disner has solved. And by introducing any financial implications for the years forward, that disrupts the carefully curated puzzle. Because I think everything has kind of been worked out. And they figured out that they can pay everyone. And by bringing someone in, Disner goes, well, which one are you losing then? And Dan doesn't want to do that. And I wonder whether it's a Campbell and Disner versus Holmes. Because Disner is going to be a voice in that room. I have absolutely no doubt he's the money guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would go as far to say as if they've decided that the route they're going to go down is the one to pay everybody, I think they're doing a bad job. I think that's an incorrect decision, and I think that's a poor decision from the organization. The goal is not to pay as many of your young players as possible. The goal is to win a Super Bowl. And I think a lot of fans have lost sight of that as well. I think if you offered Lions fans a Super Bowl, but they had to lose the 23 class, let's just, as a thing, or you pay the entire 23 class and you don't win a Super Bowl because the financial implications are too great. I think a lot of them would say to you, I want to sign the 23 class because I like having these draft picks and paying them shiny contracts and it been so good because we're not used to that before. And I think, we've got to stop with the hard-on obsession with paying everyone we can as much money as we physically can. It's just not sustainable. We've seen the 49ers just do it, and it doesn't work. And, this is why we need to live here in the now. This is not thinking what these contracts for all these guys are going to look like in 5 years' time so we can continue to compete. This is what do we need now to get where we need to. Because then everything that's happening around you now just becomes blurry and you're not thinking about it. You're thinking, what happens in 6 years with Brian Branch's second contract if we do this one guy here and now? Wrong way to think. Disney's there to troubleshoot and to be able to work on the fly. And if he needs to do something, drastic, you've got to do it. But Dan and Brad also have to understand their goal is to win a Super Bowl here. And the goodwill will run out eventually. Like, all this is great, but the fans will turn on them eventually if they don't start getting results.
There were boos in Ford Field yesterday.
And paying Branch and Campbell and Gibbs and Laporte of the moon ain't going to get rid of that. People aren't just going to go, oh, well, this is acceptable. It's not acceptable. So please think a bit more about the now, guys. I get last year 25 on the IR and stuff. That's just a stupid, you can't overcome that whatsoever. But this year, you don't have that excuse. You've got to start thinking about the now and stop thinking about what's happening in 5-6 years' time.
There is a question in the chat which I just want to address. I think the response may be short, but I think it's worth just mentioning just because of the performance yesterday, and we're going to go into the game as soon as we address this point. DM5TV56 on YouTube asked, do we stand pat on Goff after this year or see if we can move him? As you see, the O-line has to play well, but he's a sitting duck or statue incapable of moving if the offensive line doesn't play well. Is Goff's performance worrying anyone enough to the point where they're considering Goff's long-term future?
Sorry, Ash, I've been rambling. You can go first.
It's fine. For me, it's a case of better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So for me, what springs to mind is, for example, the 49ers a couple of years ago when, they were there, they were happy with their QB situation, but we could get better here. There's this nice shiny toy in the draft that we can maybe trade up for, and he's got all the intangibles. And if we can just make him work, we're going to be unstoppable. He'll be the next Mahomes, the next Josh Allen. Trey Lance. I know obviously that's a sort of hyperbole kind of thing, but it's more for me right now, and this will continue until if this continues to trend, this would obviously change. But right now, if you're asking me, it's more likely that Goff is staying and we restructure his contract to help with all the cap stuff down the line, which seems very inevitable. That's what pretty much all every part of Detroit's Lions podcast / Lions Wire with Risden, all these outlets are saying it does look very likely the way the cap is working out. We're going to have to restructure Goff, which means we're going to be tied to him down the future kind of thing. That's more likely than us trading him away because number one, our entire offensive system is built around Goff. Matt knows I've had this argument a couple of weeks ago with when we were watching the Chiefs game in London, and I was trying to point out that but because it was basically it was Goff versus Baker, who'd you rather have? And I was like, Goff, because the whole system's built around him. If we bring in a new shiny toy that has a bit more mobility, can maybe deal with his offensive line problems, we then do have to change all our pass blocking schemes, because one of the good things about Goff not being mobile is if he does move, we rarely get holding calls, because quite a lot of holding calls in the NFL come with these mobile quarterbacks when they're moving out the pocket. The offensive line don't know, and suddenly they're holding their defender back and they're getting flagged for it. But also entire systems built around him. So if we get in, I don't know, let's say for some reason we trade him, we get all the picks and we manage to get Ty Simpson from Alabama, who is a bit more mobile, but doesn't have the same level of processing that Goff does. We do have to change our entire offensive system, and suddenly this sort of it still is a bedding in period in a way. We'll have to then continue all next season where suddenly we're having to create a whole new offensive system. That will take time for the receivers to bed in, the O-line to bed in, Ty Summers himself to bed, Ty Simpson, to bed in. Ty Summers got on my brain with the line, special teams linebackers. All these guys have to bed in. So to make us what should have been a short answer long, no. There is some things to worry about, but it's not worrying enough for me to, say, let's trade them away. We've got to find another lottery ticket, because as Steps and Kyler Minogue said, and as I said earlier, better the devil you know.
Oh dear. No, I think is the short answer. But what I am doing, because obviously we've lost Hooker now, is you are drafting for the future. I think absolutely you look for Goff's eventual successor in this draft. You have to keep firing on these guys. You have to keep making picks because I don't think Kyle Allen's a long-term answer. Kyle Allen's fine as QB2 if we need him for a few snaps here and there, but you know, Goff's contract is where next year obviously it's going to get restructured. It's definitely getting restructured. The team doesn't restructure very much, but it's going to have to this year, which is going to push the price of his contract up. You don't want to have to then restructure him a second year in a row and push that price up to the fact where you're going to have to ride out the rest of his contract without incurring a massive dead cap hit in future. I think you restructure him next year. And then you draft a guy to come in and learn from him and a potential successor plan and see what happens. Because next year, 26 is big for the Lions. I mean, obviously this year is as well, but I think we're then reaching the length of tenure here with QB and head coach and that. Whereas if we're still not making progress forward, there will have to be legitimate questions about him. And you want to try and take a swing. So, no, I'm not giving up on him this year. I still think he's the right man for the job. Absolutely. I'm not worried because the amount of pressure he was under. Like there were some plays where he made some fantastic plays under pressure and was able to get the ball out, and that I think it was a product of what he was given to work with. As I said, the receiver routes were taking ages to develop. The guys weren't getting open. The guys weren't blocking for him. It's just not what he's about. So, but I think in the list of problems on this franchise, he is way, 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 way down the list of things we need to address right now. So no, we stick with him another year, but we do draft a guy this year as at worst a backup, but potentially looking towards the future.
I, for one, welcome the 2026 Diego Pavia-led Detroit Lions. Jared Goff has shown us what a quarterback is capable of in Detroit after Matthew Stafford. He, in some ways, is better than Matthew Stafford. In some ways, he's not. Physically talented, not so much. But in terms of being exactly what we need, probably is. Goff's misfiring yesterday has been something which has kind of been present all year, which is not really like him, and yet the offense is still firing. It's just very disjointed. Goff needs to sort it out. He doesn't have an unlimited amount of rope that someone's just going to give him and you say, you know, no matter what, you're going to be our guy. It would be insane, I think, to say that about any player. If Amon-Ra St. Brown suddenly turned into the New York Giants' Kenny Golladay, he'd eventually not be on the team. It doesn't matter that he's Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you still have to continually prove that you deserve to be in the position that you're in. That said, Goff isn't the reason we're losing. He is still capable of some absolutely brilliant plays. The fact that he was struggling to get away from pressure wasn't his fault. And frankly, if you put Mahomes in the position that we put Goff in yesterday, I'm not sure that he does a huge amount better. You know, the offensive line made it pretty impossible for any quarterback in that position. So it doesn't give me pause. It just, I just want to have Goff respond to it like he has done for all of his Lions career, which is to stand up and be counted when adversity hits. And he will. All right, we're going to talk about the game very briefly, but more we're going to talk about the kind of defining features of it and, you know, what went wrong and maybe how that features for the future of the team. 27-24 Lions lose against the Vikings. Vikings go to 4-4. Lions fall to 5-3. The Lions are 3-1 at home, but 1-2 in division. JJ McCarthy went 14 of 25 for 143, 2 touchdowns and a pick. They went for 142 yards on the ground in 29 carries. That also featured Jordan Mason going 10 for 36. That's because Aaron Jones went 9 for 78 before he went out with an injury. Jones was unplayable out there. And, I mean, the offensive line did a great job keeping him clean and getting plenty of yards before contact. But he made the absolute most of his opportunities. And frankly, the Lions are fortunate he went out with injury. Receiving, I mean, they only had 143 yards, so no one lit it on fire for us. But Jordan Addison, 2 of 4 for 48. Justin Jefferson, 6 of 9 for 47 and a touchdown. And TJ Hockenson, 2 of 3 for 11 and a touchdown. The really important one there, Jalen Naylor was only 1 of 4 for 16 yards, but it was the game-sealing pass at the end on 3rd down that Naylor got, and that was a real shame. I think it was Naylor. Maybe it was Addison. I can't remember. I think it was Naylor. Anyway, for Detroit on offense, Jared Goff, 25 of 37, 284, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Statistically looks fine. Obviously just took a lot of sacks and a lot of the yards came in, not garbage time, but pretty late. David Montgomery, 11 for 40 and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 9 for 25 in a horrible running performance by the Lions, mainly because of the offensive line, but the running backs were also nothing to write home about. And then receiving the ball, it was a pretty good day all told for the Lions receivers. Laporta, 6 of 8 for 97 and a touchdown. Amon-Ra, 9 of 13 for 97. Jameson Williams got the touchdown late. He went 4 of 6 for 66 and a touchdown. Obviously, Monty has his fumble, which was recovered by Harrison Smith. Otherwise, on defense, Blake Cashman had 14 tackles in this game. The Vikings had 5 sacks, 1 by Hargrave, 1 by Redmond, 1 by Rodriguez, and 2 by Eric Wilson. There were also 5 other TFLs, 1 by Cashman, 1 by Hargrave, 1 by Grenard, 1 by Van Ginkel, and that's it. And then on Detroit's side, Jack Campbell had 9 tackles to lead the team. They also had 5 sacks, 1 by Campbell, 1 by Barnes, 1 by Lacey, 1 by Hutchinson, and 1 by Mohammed. And then there were 3 other TFLs, 1 by Barnes, 1 by Robertson, 1 by Stewart. Oh, there's 1 extra. 1 by Tyleek. Sorry, I cannot count. Terry and Arnold had the pick of JJ McCarthy ripping it out of the wide receiver's hands. Otherwise, kick returns were a dagger in the Lions' side with Miles Price doing very, very well there. Kicking-wise, Will Rijkaard was perfect. 2 of 2 on field goals, 3 of 3 on extra points. Bates was 3 of 3 on extra points, but the real dagger in the heart was only going 1 of 2 on field goals after the block. And otherwise, punting was fine for both teams. And just talking about this game overall, Lions lose by 3. Obviously had the blocked field goal, and it's easy to kind of chalk that up as a 3-point swing at the very least. Lions came back late. It never really felt like the Lions deserved to win, but you look at the end result, you look at the halftime score, we hung around despite kind of being outplayed in all facets of the game.
Yeah, we did, but we played shite. And that's the main thing you take away from it. It doesn't matter if we hung around, it doesn't matter if we had a chance to win it, as you've so rightly said already. We never looked like we were going to win. Not from after that first drive, how you let them hit you back so hard with a stupidly bad special teams play, and then wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Any sort of opportunity you had to exert pressure on them was gone. We spoke in the preview about, get in front of these guys, make them drop back. The 2 tackles are hurt. The interior's a mess. Let's get this into our hands and put them in a favorable position. But we go from such a good start to just immediately giving them the impetus back. And then we go into our shell and we start playing exactly into their hands. We could give you a list of things that you don't do against the Vikings. The list for us is not very long of things you do against the Vikings to be in trouble against. We almost took that list of things that you don't do against the Vikings, and instead of going, you know what, let's not do them and do the stuff we're good at, why don't we do them for a laugh and see what happens? And we fucked around and we found out, and it was just so disappointing in that I genuinely felt like they out-physicaled us for most of this. They beat us at our own game. And I'm not used to seeing that, especially against the Vikings. The Vikings have always been a soft-centered team. We dropped 30 on them in the last 5 performances against them. We've always managed to roll them over because they've never had a spine to keep up with what we have. But then in this one, they found it. And the one thing we didn't take into account when doing the preview, when we had us wiping the floor with them, was the fact that this was a must-win game for the Vikings, especially given what went on around the rest of the conference with the Bears winning. If they'd have lost this to us, the Bears would have won. The Vikings would have found themselves cut adrift at the bottom of the NFC North and would probably be looking to sell at the deadline at this point and not be making a run this year. So we came up against a snake that was coiled in a corner. And again, in a situation where we are favourites. We are expected to be favourites. We are expected to behave like the better team and to show why we're the Super Bowl contender and they're not. We froze in the lights. We made stupid mistakes. We're at home and we're giving up 10 penalties. You don't give up penalties at home when the crowd's on your side and giving you every possible advantage that you have. The special teams, which has been our calling card for years, has been diabolical, and we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We're like the fucking 18-year-old nerdy geek who's never taken off a woman's bra before, trying to fumble around trying to do it, and we're taking 50 seconds and we're still not there with it. We just can't do basic things because we look like we've never done it in our lives. And this is where it comes to the bigger thing for me, where I think this team is really struggling to change its mindset from being an underdog to a contender because it's two different types of mindsets you've got all together in the way that you play. And we've come up against another team who's given us their best shot, who've been backed into a corner. And we're meant to go in there and we're meant to land a hammer blow to them and leave them knocked out, where we've actually found ourselves sparked out on the ground. You're just making mistakes that teams that are under pressure make. And I'm wondering, why are we feeling under pressure? That was the big takeaway from this game for me. Yeah, just Morton called atrociously shoddy plays that played right into the Vikings' hands. Special teams couldn't stop a runny nose. And the defense just ultimately, I thought, people are saying three phases were bad last night. I thought the defense was actually very good in the circumstances and, got a lot of stops for us when the offense was doing bugger all. You can only give up so much. You can only put so much pressure on the defense when you're working with a makeshift secondary and that. So, yeah, for me, I just come away from this thinking more and more that the Lions have a mentality problem now. It's not a skill problem. It's a mentality problem. And, that's been my worry for a little bit of a while. So, yeah, it was just undisciplined, unlike us, and not what this team is about, and it's concerning.
Just some updates coming in from the Dan Campbell press conference at the moment, confirming that Christian Mahogany does have a broken bone. They are still hoping to get him back before the end of the year. He said that's one of the best possible scenarios in the situation. No long-term injury for Deckert or Sewell, but their availability for this upcoming game is in the balance. Not ideal. Let's break this down then into the different phases, because I think it's going to help to kind of frame it in that way. So let's start with the most obvious problem, which obviously was the offense. The few notes I had about this game: down-to-down struggles. Drives came together, but I think the second half started with 3 straight 3-and-outs. There was a stat that came up about that during the game, I'm pretty sure. Offensive line were completely blown away. Even before the injury started to take shape, they were blitzing the A gap, and we were really, really struggling to deal with that, and they couldn't fix it. And I saw someone comment on this. They were unwilling to fix it. So instead of maybe sacrificing a piece of your offense to go max protect, or maybe just kind of block a little bit better and just only going with a few receivers and just seeing if it worked, we never really tried. And they kept hitting us with the same problem, and we still didn't find the solution, which was very frustrating. Even when Goff was well protected, especially after the first drive, balls were thrown at the feet of receivers, or even before it got to the receiver. Goff seemed to be throwing short on a lot of his plays. What else do we have here on offense? Play calling, as Ant just mentioned, kind of suspect generally, and I'll talk about John Morton in a minute. There's a lot of talk about John Morton and whether his position could be in trouble. I know before the bye, a lot of people rubbish that, but I think this is just going to reignite things. And then, obviously, this is not really offensive focus, but it is an offensive play which affected the game. The Lions were down 3, 3rd and 9, at their own 5. You have the toss play to Monty, which you almost dropped, but then he converted the 3rd and 9, only to fumble it. Who knows what happens in the game at that moment? If we make that conversion on 3rd and 9 on a bloody toss play, it's going to feel like a backbreaker for the Vikings. If we can score in that moment, the game's very different, which is why I take umbrage a little bit with my own comment about it never looked like we were going to win the game. Because 3 points down in the second half, we make a back-breaking third down conversion. With the team that we are, we can hammer that sort of thing home. So we, at every turn, kind of shot ourselves in the foot one way or the other, which was just super frustrating. So anyway, I'm going to throw it back to you boys. General offensive struggles, streaky, quarterback struggling, offensive line struggling. I would say the wide receivers look fine, personally. Should we have seen more adjustments from the coaching? What's wrong with the play calling at the moment, if anything, in your mind? Give me some flavour of your guys' thoughts, and what do you think?
I mean, it was just so conservative the way that he played. And, like you come out and you have that first great drive, you're mixing things up, you're hitting them hard with tempo, it looks great. And yes, you have to convert on a fourth down, but, it's a great throw. It's fucking wonderful from Sam to see him dragging like half of Minnesota, kicking and screaming into the end zone with him. But after that, like, first down was shocking. Every time we were on first down, it felt like it was a negative run for a loss. It was a sack. It was an incomplete pass. We just put ourselves in terrible situations where we couldn't get anything going. Like that first drive, fine. The second touchdown in there comes from a short field. Outside of that, your drives, 3 plays, -7 yards, 6 plays, 14 yards, 3 plays, 6 yards, 3 plays, -1 yard. And it's just the same old crap again and again. And the amount of times, I think it was the first drive after the first touchdown, we had a run for 2 yards. Then what did we do? We threw 2 screen passes that both went for losses. Because we can't defend, we can't execute a screen pass to save our life. We were throwing, like, I can't remember us throwing past the sticks, barely at all. You're condensing Minnesota's defense because you're playing so negatively. You're throwing screens, which they love to blow up. You're putting them in positions where their blitz packages can work on you in super quick time. You're refusing to use your downfield option in JMO. Like, you're not even trying to get him involved until later in the game when we actually had some success there. Like, what are we doing? This is Patricia level crap. Instead of doing 2 runs up the middle for a yard, it's a run up for nothing, and then it's a screen pass. It's so goddamn predictable. And it just, like I said, list of things you don't do against Minnesota. Get into bad second and third down situations, and you don't start throwing behind one, the line of scrimmage, or two, the sticks, because they're just going to eat you alive. And we got lucky because we got a short field for one drive and we caught them cold opening the game. Outside of that, no creativity, no ingenuity, no nothing. That's what I thought about it. I just thought it's vanilla.
Ash, you're on mute, sir.
There we go. Sorry. Trying to listen to Dan's press at the same time. Even though pretty much the same old now. The stats back up everything that the eye test saw and what you guys have been saying. Like, people know I follow the stats, follow the sites. Early down EPA -0.23, which is 11th percentile. Red zone 23rd percentile. Success rate 10th percentile. A pass percentage over expectation -5.4%. 28th percentile. Negative play rate 23.3%. 4th percentile. Just all these things, and if it's obvious to us and people watching the stadium and other people, why haven't the team worked this out? Like, Dan did get asked the question in the presser just about trying to get Gibbs and JMO into space, and it is one of those bullshit questions the way it was phrased, and Dan was like, yeah, we're trying, but it just didn't work, and it's disappointing. We knew what was coming. So did they. So I know I did try to do a bit of a drive summary initially before. I was like, nah, there's no point in a pause. It wasn't play by play. The screenplay that we did to Gibbs, and they sniffed at Eric Wilson, sniffed out instantly, tackled him for a loss. Teams know we want to do these screens, we want to do all these things, and they would just, especially a blitzing teams like the Vikings, like the Bucks before the bye, because I think everyone agrees that Bucks game was won by the defense, not by the offense. It's been a trend all season, and this week it was just magnified by the miscommunications again against a really good defense in Italy. But they saw we got two rookie guards in inverted commas, a center who isn't that good, and they targeted it. And to make it even better for them, we started putting Gibbs in pass protection to try and max protect. That works once or twice when you do it because teams don't expect it. But when they know they're blitzing and they're going up against Gibbs, who, usually is a bit better in pass protection than he was yesterday. But when they knew it would mean Gibbs has just got a block, he's got a block, he won't get into space, they won't be able to use him as a check down to get some positive yardage on bad situations. It made the offense one-dimensional. And then, it didn't help. I know the sort of conversation about the running backs keep swinging back and forth. They saw Monty come in, right, we're going to load up the box because we rarely passed him. The one time that we did, which was a check down, it worked. We said that on the stream. We're just becoming too predictable. And we still have a couple of these trick plays. And we maybe less trick plays is good kind of thing than what we had last year. But when teams know what we're going to do, it's third down. Let's put bracket coverage on Amon Ross, St. Brown, and Sam Laporta. Force Kelly Framer to try and beat us on the crossing route. He's dropped it. It just wasn't there. Like, there were good things about the offense. So when they did sort of let us have the middle of the field, usually when we targeted Sam Laporta, it worked because when that worked, 94th percentile on stuff that had a success rate in those things. Laporta, when he was targeted, had a 97% EPA when targeted. His Yak was 95th percentile. So JMO, when he was targeted, 86th percentile. But because we put those OSMs in a situation of, to screen behind the thing, false starts. Well, at home, why are we false starting 4 or 5 times? Stuff like that. And then I know we'll come on to the refs in a bit because some of the calls they did make, Jesus Christ. But again, we don't want to be in that position where a bullshit roughing the passer call just destroys our mentality.
I'm not complaining about the refs this week. That's how bad this is. The stuff with JMO is really starting to piss me off now. It was very clear. Again, the stuff when we used to struggle with Ben on offense, generally what we were doing is we weren't taking shots downfield. We were letting defenses creep up on us and stop us playing the way we want to play football. And this is exactly what Morton's doing. He's not using JMO, and defenses are creeping up on us, and they're stopping us playing all this bullshit behind the line of scrimmage stuff that he wants to play. It really angers me. The way they talk about JMO is the way, you know how in COD, if Call of Duty player, and you've got to get so many kills so you can get a nuke type thing, and you can use a nuke and you can blow everybody up and stuff like that. They act with JMO like they have to have so much of a good offensive game, and then they get to use a JMO like he's a nuke. Like, he can't be used until they've had a decent offensive game and they've set up JMO for being able to be used in this game. That's not how it works, folks. This is not a game where you get to charge up and use a super weapon. JMO can be used from snap 1. It was really clear that their DBs had no clue how to deal with him. Every time something was thrown his way, he snaffled it up, got yards after the catch, and he got a great touchdown at the end of this game when he was targeted. Clear to everybody. Why are we trying to power up to use him? Why are we not just using him? Because the one thing we needed was a downfield threat, a legitimate one, so the Vikings had to back those linebackers off. People say, he can get into... Just saying, Goff's not got the time to throw. You're telling me JMO can't get clear in a couple of seconds the way he runs and where he's at if you're throwing with timing to him and you can't get him involved in this game. Why are we not using him? That is my thing. I just don't like it. They're acting like he's a luxury and that he's not a player who we're paying nearly 100 million to this year and has game-breaking ability to go out there and make our lives easier. You deploy JMO so you can play your natural game, not the other way round. And they're pig-headed and they're stubborn and they absolutely refuse to go away from that thing. Now, let's just do the checkdowns and shit first and maybe we'll hit JMO later. Too late. Too late. It's really, really bugging me. And no matter how many apologies Morton gives him, how about you apologise to him, Bob, by drawing up a play for him the first play of the game and using him and making teams think, oh, you know what, actually, they're throwing to him today. We got to be a bit careful here because he might just mincemeat us.
I'm going to focus my thinking on Morton because I think that is the focal point of everything that's happening. The lack of execution is just something you have to work out. We can just say, work it out and move on. There's nothing I can say to Graham Glasgow in terms of critique which is going to make it any better, and there is no better help coming than that. So I'm not going to waste my breath. Morton is something that you can discuss because there are just things about it that you can critique and fix quickly. Not necessarily fix quickly, I just mean in this theoretical discussion that we're having. I saw a comment in our live chat when we were doing the play-by-play, and I laughed it off. And then I started thinking about it, and the more I've thought about it, the more I'm starting to get a really bad feeling about this. People will say, give him the Anthony Lynn treatment, but this is not Anthony Lynn, and this is nothing like Anthony Lynn. Maybe in terms of results, but not in terms of method. The person said, this feels like Jim Bob Cooter. And it does. It absolutely does feel like Jim Bob Cooter, and I'll tell you why. When we had Ben Johnson here, there were issues with him, as Ant has pointed out, and there were reasonable issues with Ben Johnson. But the thing about Ben, mainly in terms of his play calling of the game, you felt like you were in the presence of an artist at work, and maybe the canvas you ended up painting didn't end up exactly how you wanted it to. But he painted a picture, and sometimes it hit and sometimes it didn't. But you had a feeling like you were watching a master at work. With John Morton, I get the feeling that you're watching someone who is football autistic. Someone who is able to watch what you're meant to do and is trying to copy what good play callers do. Because the plays he's calling are not bad plays, but they're not the right plays at the right time, because he's not feeling the game as he goes. He calls a play which they've discussed last week, and all through the prep to this game, we're putting this in the playbook for this week. The reason we think it's going to win is for this and this and that. And then he just decides to run that play because. Okay, but does it make sense at this time? He does not feel the game. And that's a big problem. Anthony Lynn did not feel the game. He did what he did because pig-headed. I don't believe Johnny Morton is pig-headed. I'm calling him Johnny now like he's the fucking wide receiver. He doesn't understand the game. Not in a coaching perspective, because I think he's a good coach. But from the perspective of someone who needs to call the game. Ben was excellent at calling plays at the right time against the tendencies of the opposition to make the most of what happened. And the biggest example of that is the screen game working versus the screen game not working. The screen game is a boom or bust play. When it gets blown up, it can be a drive killer. When it works, you can hit them for 6. And the success rate of screen passes is a big indicator as to whether your coordinator actually has his finger on the pulse, because they are boom or bust. Sometimes when you call it into a blitz, it works. It's meant to be the right thing to do. And yet, as Ant rightly said, the Vikings eat that shit up. So do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It didn't work against them either. Now, we had a really good performance against them, and 1 or 2 worked. But generally speaking, you don't call those plays against that team because of the way that they're made up. It points to something really badly wrong. And it's not something I thought before the bye, but the more I've thought about it after this game, Morton doesn't get it. And I'm willing to give him a little bit longer because I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I am a guy on the internet who just watches the game for fun. this is how it seems to me. I don't have a clue. I'm pretty sure Dan Campbell does have a clue. If he decides to keep him on for a while, that's fine. He's shown that he will get rid of him if he doesn't think it's working. So I still believe in Dan, and that's the reason why I'm just going to back him whatever the decision is. I don't know how you guys feel on this, because we've talked about it a bit. And Ant, you've talked about the play calling and about apologising to JMO and what have you. But part of me is like, I'm not even sure if you just design some plays for JMO and then go, right, let's run this play, that it would work. Because he would call it at the wrong bloody time.
I'm not sure about the Cooter stuff. I've erased those years from my memory, so I've tried to forget about his. I've tried to forget his memory completely. I remember those days. I agree with you. I don't. It does feel like, because for all Ben's problems, Ben's could flawlessly go through a game and treat it like a story, and he would know when to ebb and when to flow and when to and yes, sometimes he would get too hooked on certain aspects of his game, but like, he was a storyteller. Morton feels like he's, just recanting bits from the book as he goes along in no particular order and doesn't know what he's doing with. He's playing for the now. He's not playing for the whole game. It's disjointed. It's not a story. It's the same line repeated again and again and again, trying to understand what that line is about and trying to make meaning from it and getting nothing. I know we've put up some good points with him, but it just doesn't feel like it's there. I don't feel like the knife's getting stabbed in, and like, you've got to be aggressive, you've got to be ruthless, is what you've got to be, and I don't see that with him. That first play was so good. Take what you've done on that first drive and use it, and instead you just go back to your usual insufferable, in your shell self, like, okay, we've driven at 70 miles an hour now, we just need to bring it back down to 50 so we're nice and safe and we get to where we're going on time.
Which is what he does after
you go up to
turnovers.
bloody 90. Yeah, you go up to 90. You go up to 70, you put them under pressure. You go up to 90, you put them under pressure. You go up to 110, you make those guys feel it. He doesn't. He backs off.
When you've got them in a rear naked choke, you don't let them go. You make them tap out.
No, you don't say, oh, hang on, you need to breathe a little bit. Here, let me just loosen the grip a little bit, and you can, because I don't want to hurt you too much. He's not a finisher, and that's the problem. And, he's not looking at his he's too stubborn. He thinks his way's going to beat everybody. The best coordinators adapt to their opposition and sometimes eat a bit of humble pie, and you go, you know what? My preferred system is not going to work here. So you know what? I've got a ton of offensive weapons I can use. I'm going to throw something different at you, and we're going to win this way. It's just stubbornness, and the Vikings are the one team you just don't play against this way. We know how to play it. We've scored 35 times in a row on this Flores defense. Like, we know better than anybody in the NFL how to beat this defense and what to do with it. And we acted like, it was the first time we were seeing this ever. Flores puts his scheme up with massive neon lights in his backfield telling you exactly what he's going to do. And you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, screw it. My way's going to beat that. I don't care. It doesn't mesh, but that's where I'm at with him. He's a stubborn so-and-so.
I think I've just found a good way to put it before I throw it to Ash. I think Morton is a scientist where Ben is an artist. That's how I see it. Ash, what do you think? Sorry.
Oh, you put it a lot more eloquently than me.
I mean, scientists use trial and error, not error and repeat the same error. So I think
I tell you what, there's a lot of scientists that do just go error for their entire career. But
I think that's disingenuous to science, the overall feeling of science. Sorry, Ash.
Exactly. Well, yeah, so basically, see, I can actually make the joke now. Because I was going to say, yeah, Ben's an artist while Morton is a DJ because he keeps going error. But then you actually made the noise. God damn it. Stop stealing my jokes. Get out of my head. Bastard. I was actually going to make that joke and then you made the thing. I was like, shit, people are going to catch on now. Fuck. But yeah, it's just because Jim Bob's a good example, but admittedly, Joe Lombardi was just before my time because I was really getting into the Lions just as we fired him. But Joe Lombardi, fucking Darryl Bevel, when he was our offensive coordinator, when Cooter got fired, it's the same stuff where, yeah, you have all these weapons. Obviously, they had Matthew Stafford, one of the best quarterbacks of that we've seen sort of in our time of fandom. Calvin for a bit of that, but then Kenny Golladay was good. Golden Tate, the Yak King, all these weapons. And I mean, Double when we got him was supposed to be a good run. All these, like Kerryon Johnson, all these pieces, and it could just never come together. And then with Ben, it did for a bit. And obviously he went off. And Morton was supposed to come and he was supposed to be here when we created the scheme and that. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'm a kid in a candy store. Can't wait to use all these weapons. And it's just like, yeah, you're using them, but you're using them to, like a kid mixes potions when they're 5 years old and then mix mommy and daddy's shampoo up to make a magic potion.
Or like me when you try and drink the antifreeze at 2 years old.
Yeah.
Sorry. That did happen. Fun times.
But yeah.
So close to not being here for multiple reasons, but
But yeah, it's the stuff like just being fucking Jason in Far Cry 3, where Voss has to go to him. Do you know the meaning of insanity? It's doing the same thing over then expecting different results. That's what we're doing with this. It's the stuff we do with Amon works. The stuff we do with Laporta is finally working. But aside from Gibbs breaking some big plays, has there really been anyone else on this offense who's really done much? Like, really? Like, Monty, I know he's getting stacked boxes, scheme against that. Don't run him up for the fucking A gap every fucking play. Get him outside, do some of these things to get light in the boxes for him. Tesla, I know he had those two. He's a victim of his own success with his first 2 catches in the league, but where's he gone other than that 4th down stuff last week? Khalif, I know we targeted him once this game with the crosser on the 3rd down that just didn't work. You can say you're a kid in the candy store with all these weapons, but when you're only really using 2 well, the other one is busting big plays in himself because you take away that massive run ahead against the Bucks last week and that yards per carry and all that goes down. It's just not working. To one more bagged analogy, he's like a kid on Madden that just keeps pressing the same plays over and over, double slants, halfback draw, all these. And when you play online, people figure that shit out. You need to do other stuff, and the time to sort that to do that trial and error was before the bye. We have to be like the Chiefs defense before their bye, where Spags is doing a bit of the stupid shit just to see what his players can do. But when they come out of the bye, that defense is on point. It's always on point. And we're not like that right now. We're still in the figure it out stage. And with all the stuff in the offensive line now, it's going to get a lot harder. And we're coming up against, I know the Commanders this week, not a great defensive line, but, the Eagles, really good defensive line. If we don't get sorted by then, they're going to swallow us whole. And while their offense is still not perfect, nor is the Vikings one.
Packers again right after that. Packers D-line's already decimated us once this year and has figured us out. This is the thing, when people are saying it's not all Morton's fault, I don't think it is all Morton's fault, but the nature of the NFL is that the NFL adapts to you. It always finds a way. These guys, these defensive coordinators, these head coaches who call the defensive plays, they religiously sit at home and study you. And they do everything in their power to create a system which is going to stop you playing, no matter how good your offense is. And the best offensive coordinators always adapt with them, keep changing the theme, keep changing what they're showing, so that these guys are like, for God's sake, I've spent all this time and they've just adjusted what they're doing. What has John Morton done to this offense, which is different from what Ben did? Where's his twist on this offense? Where's his evolution of this offense? If he was naive enough, and sometimes I think Dan might be guilty of this, of them just thinking their run game's going to kill everybody. Someone's going to figure out how to play you. The Packers did it. The Vikings have done. That is the most noticeable thing. Goff has been sacked, 13 times this year. 12 have come in 3 games. Well, 2 of those, we've had 3-4 sack games against him so far. 2 have come from our divisional opponents. Why? Because they see us a lot, they know what we do, and they've adapted to what we do. And I'm calling him Bob now. Thanks for this. I'm going to start calling him Bob Morton because Matt's called him Jim Bob. But what has he done to evolve this offense so that it doesn't fall behind the times, which it has done? The answer is nothing. He has given nothing new to this offense whatsoever, and the NFL has caught up with us and is figuring us out. And until we adapt and evolve again, it's not just as simple as we're going to run down everybody's throat. It's not that easy. Everyone's just going to stack the box against us and start blitzing like crazy now.
Yes.
And because they know they can get at us. And we need to adapt. We've got to stop, we can't just keep throwing screens all the bloody time. We can't just keep running behind the center and the left guard and that all the time. We didn't run behind Penny in this one. The lack of running behind our best run defending offensive lineman is crazy. How little we actually run behind him, but this is Bob Morton's. For fuck's sake, I'm doing it again. Right, he's Bob Morton now. He's Bob Morton. That's what he's going to be going forward. But if you're saying it's not his fault, what has he done to adapt this offense? Nothing. So, yes, it is his fault.
That was going to be something I come on to, the long-term implications of what happened last week. I do think you agree. Teams are going to increase the blitz rate against us. They're going to ratchet up and just say, you know what, I don't think we can live with your weapons. So we're not going to let you. And so what's the reaction to this? How should Detroit react? We do the run game to a fault and it doesn't work, and teams have reacted and they stack the box and it is no longer working. I'm not saying abandon the run altogether, but I am saying beat them in passing. We have so many weapons, we can't feed them all anyway. Fucking throw the ball. Throw the ball on first down, throw the ball on second down, throw the ball on third down. Throw the fucking ball.
Stat for that. The 2025 Detroit Lions has a 59.3 passing success rate on first down, the highest by any team since the 2019 Saints. Their 42.9 first down drop back rate is tied for third lowest in the NFL this season.
I mean, those two things are related. The less you drop back, the more of a surprise it is, the more successful it will be. But just do it more. It will be a surprise to a team and they'll have to back off.
Exactly. Be adventurous. Be dangerous. Use JMO early. Hell, use Tesla early. Tesla has shown that down the field as a contested catch guy in a situation where you throw even a 30, 70 ball to him, that he will be the one who comes down with it. Make these corners feel it. They couldn't deal with JMO. Like, they just couldn't. They couldn't deal with his speed. They couldn't deal with his aggression. They must have been laughing to the bank when they're sat there with him and all he's doing is blocking against them, and they're like, God, I don't have to run with this guy. I don't have to do this. They're just throwing it beyond the sticks. I don't even have to run with JMO anymore. I'm just going to stick where I am, and I'm going to rally to a ball that's thrown 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Every time.
We've got two secret weapons. A big secret weapon in JMO and an unheard of secret weapon in Tesla. And we've got them back in the lab. They're not on the front lines inflicting damage on players like they should be. Why are they in the lab? They're that special that we can't use them. It's one of these things, it's like, again, we treat them like a luxury that we can only use after so long. We've got to do it our way first before we can do the fancy stuff. No, because every single team is going to stop us playing our way. And you have shown absolutely zero interest in changing the way you play. You're just stubbornly going to carry on playing again and again and again and again and again. Now teams are figuring us out. And we have got good teams on the way now. Some of our wins have not been against good teams so far. We've had a couple of decent wins, but even then, we've struggled. The Eagles are going to absolutely destroy us if we carry on doing what we're doing. The Packers have destroyed us once already and will do it again. And then you're looking at, God forbid, being a 500 team, you're falling behind in the conference. Like, these are problems that need to be fixed now. We are not guaranteed a lock for the playoffs right now. And it seems like we're just we're just moving the wheels, but they're not moving. We're just sort of sat there and idling like we don't really care. Like we're saving our best stuff for the end of the season. Like, It's just ridiculous. We've got weapons for a reason to use it. We don't have to force feed it to Amon-Ra and Laporta 10 times a game. We can be creative and use other people. That's why we have them.
I think every time we don't throw the ball to Jameson Williams, the defense breathes a sigh of relief.
It gets braver and braver. They each stand another couple of inches closer up the field. Every time, like just a little, like a tiger, just in the long grass, just easing themselves up bit by bit, and you don't notice. And before you do, everybody is up at the line of scrimmage. Like how many times yesterday it felt like there were 7, 8 guys up there. Hell, the safeties were playing where the bloody linebackers were meant to be because the linebackers were up on the line, and you're like, I've got a guy who can run 50 mile an hour here. I know he can't, but I've got a guy who can absolutely marmalize these guys and mince beam. All I've got to do is drop it to him over the top and he's gone. And no, they're not going to do that. They're going to throw a screen to Jameer Gibbs or Monty or Sam or again, you're just inviting them to come into your house, sit there and eat all your food, and you do nothing to them.
Right, let's move on from the offense. We spent a long time on it. Let's move to the defense, which for me was a two-faced monster. First quarter, terrible. Truly terrible. Couldn't defend the run for shit. In fact, we really struggled against the run all day, but really couldn't defend the run for shit. And struggled in coverage. The Vikings moved the ball very, very well. Post first quarter, where they scored 14 of their 27 points. Pass defense really tightened up. And actually, for the rest of the game, bar some very high leverage moments, notably to Addison on third down before they went and scored another touchdown. The game-sealing third down throw. Apart from those really big moments, down to down, pass defense was excellent, and the run defense tightened up, although with Aaron Jones out of the game, it's hard to compare like with like. If Jones had remained in the game, how would that run defense have done? I'm not sure. It was an interesting performance generally by the defense. I mean, how do you guys see it overall? For me, it's a really hard one to judge because I felt like if Minnesota really wanted it, they probably could have had it. But we gave ourselves a chance late on because the defense kept stepping up.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's Jones just had us on toast. Ant knows better probably than anyone on this earth what happens to me when I see an opposition running back catch a nice big wheel against us. It sends shivers down my spine, and I do not feel well. The big play that Jones had, that's what it was. And yeah, Mason, we managed to bottle up. He has 0 rushing EPI in the game, but he still had 36% rushing success rate, which is better than either of our backs. We limited the yak, but still, we got some good EPA. So Naylor, despite obviously getting the conversion, had I believe that's a 4% target EPA. There's just all these things where we did some good stuff, sack EPA and all this, but for every good play there were some bad ones. And again, I know it's burying the lead for later, but the penalties, because there was a point going into at some point during the second quarter that the 4 defensive penalties we had up to that point all gave Minnesota a new first set of downs. Elim trying to time the snap and going offside, the roughing the passer stuff. I believe there was I think it was a whole defensive holding as well that gave a new set of downs. For every good play there was another play where we shot ourselves in the foot and made it easier for the Vikings.
I mean, this is kind of what we've become accustomed to with Kelvin now. Kelvin's defenses don't always start off great, but Kelvin adapts. And I will defend him at the start of this game. What did they have to defend on that first Vikings drive? 35 yards. Special teams was absolutely garbage. Like, there's only so much you can do when you're starting your defensive stand on your own 35. It gives the other team impetus. All it takes is 1 or 2 plays, and they're going to be down there on you. And when you've got the likes of, and no disrespect to him, Arthur Morley and guys like this on Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, they're going to get beat on occasion, and you're going to lose some of those. So, I don't even think it was that bad a start from them. They were given terrible field position. The second drive obviously was not good. They found a way to nullify us. Like they kept Aleem quiet. I've never seen, but he's just back off an ACL tear. Like God, he's going to take time to get back up and going again. But I thought defensively overall, I thought we were great. They made stops time after time after time when the offense couldn't do nothing. The fact that we were not that far down at the half after how absolutely disgustingly horrible we'd been first time out, to just be 3 points down. You know, we had an interception. We made them punt multiple times. We held them to a field goal. Just every time we needed plays, we seemed to get it off them, despite them getting no help whatsoever. And then they gave us a chance in the second half as well. First two drives, Vikings got nothing, made them punt. We can't get out of our own way. Again, the start of our half, second half, 3 plays, 8 yards, 3 plays, 8 yards. What's defense meant to do when it's going out there making stops and the offense is out there for a minute and then they've got to go back out there again and again and again and make stops? You're just not going to be able to do it for the entirety of the game. But they were able to get pressure on JJ. There were a couple of spots they did miss. They did eventually tighten up against the run. Given the severe disparity in talent between their receivers and our secondary, I thought the secondary did pretty good. I thought Terrion was amazing. Branch, I thought was back to one of his best, the best version of himself again. I thought he was great. They did everything they could to give us a hold in this game. I've got no criticism for the defense, really, given the situations they were given, the personnel they had in certain battles. I thought they did as good a job as they could have been expected to, and they are absolutely the least reason why we lost this game. And I thought there were a lot of good individual performances on there as well, which is encouraging for going forward. If you're looking for silver linings, a lot of it is on that defense.
I think the run defense was shocking all throughout. I started losing a bit of faith, actually. The run blocking, run defense in the interior was non-existent for a majority of the game. And I thought that some of that was on the defensive tackles. I thought some of it was on the linebackers at first look, but it actually looks like on second look the majority of it was on the safeties filling the wrong gaps. Missed assignments were in there. 2 players taking the same gap happened, which is why Aaron Jones was running free. How on earth, and I know Aaron Jones is still a good player, how on earth he's going at about 9 yards a carry on you is ridiculous. I'm sorry. But this Lions defense has hung its hat on the fact that it's going to be run defense first, and if you beat us through the air, fine. I despair of games like this when that is the emphasis. Pass defense was great most of the game. Some errors in zone coverage sometimes. Sometimes the Hawkinson touchdown, yeah, you banked up a bit and that's quite tough, but one guy just totally loses him. And I know that like one of the errors happened was with Thomas Harper, and he's a backup, and it should be Kirby in there, and maybe that's better. But the execution was very, very bad at times, and then it tightened up, and it really gave us a chance to win the game. And we had a chance to win this game. Like, that should not be lost in all of this. My point after we talk about the defense is: are we actually making too much of this game? And actually, are we just better than we think we are in this game? So I'm going to come on to that, but I started to lose a bit of faith in just the fact that as soon as Aaron Jones touched the ball, he was getting a first down. Every touch, pretty much.
But that again, they're playing the way that we're not. They have legitimate downfield targets to throw at, and they're throwing at a depleted secondary. You can't stack the box against them in that scenario. You've got to be careful because they're going to burn you through the air. Yeah, we can't play condensed like Minnesota did against us. You have to accept the fact that you've got Amik Robertson marking Justin Jefferson, and you've got someone like Morley looking after Addison. You just can't. You've got to help them.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess what I'm saying.
and you take Aaron Jones out the game, Mason went at 3.5 yards per carry. There was nothing much out of that. There's some big chunk plays from him, fine, but there were a lot of times when you kept it rattled up. Like Mason's been the star running back for them this year. He did nothing. It was just the fact that again, you're not in a good position in some drives to be able to defend against this, and you've got a weakened secondary. If DJ Reed's out there, if Kirby's out there, I trust them on an island against these guys. I trust to get more aggressive against the rushing game. I don't when they're not there. So you've got to be careful.
The play that really broke me, which is one we haven't really discussed, was the long floated swing pass to Aaron Jones where the linebackers got lost in traffic and he made a 25, 30-yard gain through the air. Because that's an extension of the run game. But in the traffic, he got completely lost. I think Campbell was the one who ushered him out of bounds 25 yards downfield or something like that. And potentially that was even called a run play because Aaron Jones's longest part of receiving was apparently 14 yards. And that was much longer than 14 yards. But even if it was a lateral or whatever, if we are going to not stack the box and sit back as a thing because we think that that's how we're going to try and defend this game, that's fine. But then you can't have execution errors like that against someone like Aaron Jones. Like, I agree with you, Ant, that you kind of have to pick your poison with this team in terms of how they can do things on offense. But don't then do that, is what I mean, Sorry, Ash, I know you've wanted to say something for a while.
Yeah, so it's just saying about the light box and it stuck out because it was something I don't think I mentioned it in my preview, but I should have done. Going into this game, the Vikings faced light boxes the second most of any team in the league. So they faced light boxes in 85.7% of their run plays, yet they were 25th in EPA per play in those situations. We offered light boxes on the 30th least in the league. So 35.6% of our plays were with light boxes. Yet in those situations, we were the best defense in EPA per play. That's going to change this week.
Yeah.
It was just an execution thing from the other linebacks and safeties. But part of it was going in is, and maybe that's because they had Jordan Mason. And yet Jordan Mason, as much as I actually really like him as a running back too, he's not Aaron Jones in terms of elusiveness and that. And maybe having Jones fully back this week really helps them. But that was what you should key in on. Jones is here, right? Okay, he's like their Gibbs. Let's just keep an eye on him and don't lose him in traffic, which we did on that swing/run/wheel route, whatever you want to call it. We let him beat us in a way. And he does that like the game last year where he had the massive run in the first quarter and that touchdown where TA misses his sort of edge contain and gets a touchdown. We know he does this to us. Why are you not keying in on it?
See, you're going to ask the question later about whether we're overreacting to this game or not and whether it's closer than it should have been and we're all on doom and gloom for nothing. Well, should probably hold the same argument with the run defense. The last the last 3 games prior to this, we've not allowed a rusher over 50 yards. It's not that we're getting gashed every single week and that there's a big problem there. Sometimes you come up against a team that just gets a number on you and has a guy who does it. It's not something that I'm going, oh shit, it's the worst in the league now, because it really isn't. It's just, as Ash has already mentioned, some schematics went wrong, some fundamentals went wrong in terms of the run defense. It's not an issue. I'm not going to blame the defense for it. I'm not going to say they were bad because of that. It's just an off day, which everybody has. On the whole, we're still damn good against the run, and we've just got a best guy back who's working his way from an ACL tear, and it's going to be so much better when he's healthy. So,
I completely agree. When I said I was losing faith, I meant with winning the game, not long-term implications. Is there any changes you would like to see on defense going forward, though? Is there anything where you're like, I'd like to see us do a little bit more of this because this seemed to be an issue? Or are there any implications for this game for the future for you guys?
I'd like to see DJ Reed back in there. That's what I would love to see. I would love to see DJ Reed back on.
I'd also love to have Myles Garrett on the team.
Yeah, but DJ Reed's actually our player. But it's become deathly apparent like how much we miss him. Like that conversion that lost the game to us, it's like if it was DJ Reed on that play, he'd have found a way to make a play on that thing and swat the fucker away, and we could have tried to win it. Like I know it's not a schematic thing, but I want DJ Reed back tomorrow. Like, we miss him something chronically.
Stunts. I want more stunts. I'm quickly looking it up. I know we're one of the lowest teams in the league right now with
Oh,
stunts.
no, we are lowest on stunts.
I want to
Right,
see,
Comfortably.
yeah, I wanna see
5%
them
it was, or something, 6%
Yeah.
stunts.
Why are we not? Now we've got a lean back who, okay, he's not exactly, the most nimble guy, but he's called Twinkle Toes by Dan for a reason. Why are we not doing end tackle stunts with him and Hutch? Why are we not doing Valkadim, who slides in on third downs? We did some really good ones against the Browns and the Bengals with Roy Lopez as the sort of pinhead who we're doing around. Doing more, because we saw what those kind of things did to us this week, where one of the things that people will probably see on Twitter is a nice little thing that Flores did against us, and it really worked, was having the edges of Van Ginkel and Grenard drop back and basically fill in as linebackers and have the linebackers blitz. So it's still a traditional rushing away numbers, but it was still a blitz. And because they know our scheme, they're like, okay, edge rushers, you're just going to watch for crosses and ins. And it worked. Stuff like that. I'm not saying we need to go 3-4, but having something where Barnes lines up as an edge rusher, but then he drops back into additional off-ball role and we blitz Campbell or Anzalone and do that kind of replacement blitz. And all Barnes' job is right, okay, we know the Eagles like to do a lot of slant routes with Devonta Smith. So your job is to watch for slant routes from Dallas Goedert and Devonta Smith and just try and stop them. Stuff like that, where take what worked against you. And it's like with the bloody passes to the flats to tight ends in goal line situations that we can never defend. If something works against you, it'll probably work against other people. Try it.
So I want to know why we're so anemic to using Brian Branch as a pass rusher.
Yes.
I don't know why we're not blitzing more from the secondary position. PFF has us credited with 30 sacks this season. Do you know how many are from the secondary? 1. And that's Branch.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
But it was also one of his calling cards as a rookie.
Exactly. We're anemic to using him, and you want to talk about all the guys we've got on the interior and that, which is great. You're trying to guard Hutch, Aleem, who's going to see Brian Branch coming off a blitz off the edge when they're worrying about all those guys in the middle?
Yeah, it's just because I think the reason we don't do it is because it's boom and bust. Because again, the role he plays in our scheme since he's moved to that sort of safety role, where if we did it before when he was a rookie in the slot, at least we had 2 safeties behind him. Now he's one of those safeties. You're having to drop Anzalone into that spot, and it's a bit of a mismatch. So it could work. It could definitely, get us a couple of sacks. But I think the team's adverse doing it because they're like, well, yeah, it can work, but its odds are it'll work one time. The other 2 times we're going to give up an explosive play.
But I
The thing is, we've got the Legion of Whom in there who did well. Like, why can't we just play him as a slot for a play and use him in there? This is, again, you've got weapons. He is a weapon. He is a multifaceted, multi-talented weapon who is rapid when he gets into the backfield and gives you another edge. And maybe if someone's out there with him, you're giving your interior. This is what we're talking about, giving more looks and giving more diversity to what you've got. You've got guys who you can bring Rock Yassin in. You can put someone in there at safety just for the play and let Branch go and do his thing and use him a bit more so that it doesn't become so obvious. But the lack of help from the secondary in the pass rush, when we've had issues with the pass rush, is befuddling to me. They need to stop doing this. They need to use their best pieces in the best positions.
I think this is the problem with playing too much base, is that you don't want to fill his role with a linebacker. If you were playing more nickel, then Branch would be naturally more masked in that position. But to be honest, I do think we've gone too heavy in base. Now, the way to solve that is to have Barnes as an edge rusher, and potentially he drops back or he comes. So instead of it being a 4-3 where it can turn into a 5-2 if he rushes, you have a 3-2 which can become a 3-3 if he doesn't rush. And by doing that, you can bring Branch on a blitz, and if you do bring Branch on a blitz, you can either play man and do cover 1 behind it, or you can play zone and play cover 3 behind it. Like, there are ways that you can scheme this up to make it work, and the thing is, Branch doing it, when he did it sparingly and it was extremely effective. We haven't had any DB really come on a blitz since I can remember.
Iffy.
We used to use this year,
Okay, I mean this year. Like, this season,
Oh.
it's not happened at
Yeah,
all, pretty much. So
It's
that needs to happen a little bit more. But in terms of what I think we should change, I don't think Tyreek Williams starting every game until Aleem comes back, and then suddenly, when Aleem comes back, he's being out-repped by Roy Lopez, is a winning thing to do. Don't play Roy Lopez more than Tyreek Williams. Sorry, I like Roy Lopez. He's got more pass rushing chop, and I think that's why he's doing that. Tyreek Williams is a better player right now. So do not have him be outsnapped by a backup defensive tackle. And the other thing I would like to see is a bit more 3-4. We've got Roy Lopez, we've got Tyreek Williams, we've got Aleem McNeil, we've got DJ Reader. Play 3 of them sometimes and have edge rushers as well.
I think now Aleem's back, you can do that more. It's about having the variety. No, I know, but I think it's about having again, you need a pass rusher in that 3. We've not had that so far. I think now you can do that a bit more. I would also like to see that, especially if Hassanin's going to be back soon, hopefully, and you can start deploying him, Barnes, all these guys, and do stuff like that. But I would agree, that would be nice to see that at some point.
All right, let's move on from defense. And we don't talk about it very much. We talk about it more than most Lions podcasts, but let's talk special teams. 2 things here. One, Ash has pointed it out all season. What the hell is going on with the kick coverage? We were very, very lucky to have a kick 6 ruled out for the lightest flag I have ever seen. If we're going to talk about referees, oh my God, that was not a flag. I'm sorry, but Minnesota should have had an extra 6 on the board. So when I come back and then say in a little bit that I think the Lions could have won this game, do take that with a pinch of salt, considering I've just said that. The Vikings should have had a kick 6. But then to start the game, obviously, they had a really nice return, which really set them up in good field position. But the other thing here, as I just said, the Lions had a chance to win this game. The field goal, which they end up blocking and then get a field goal for themselves, was not just a 3-point swing, it was a 6-point swing, because they went down the field to then get the field goal themselves. If we get the field goal kick off and they start from their own 25, as opposed to starting that drive from our 15 or 20 or whatever it was, if we stop them like we actually were doing on defense at that time in the game, the momentum was with us. We stop them after that field goal, go and score the touchdown we did to Jameson Williams. We win this game. So when it doesn't really feel like we should have won this game, we really, really could have stolen it. And what it took was a key special teams play going against us. And I'm not saying we will have won, but it is unfortunate that in the end, we almost gave ourselves a chance to win. I mean, even then, the Vikings still had to convert that 3rd down right at the end to not give us a chance. And you know what? I would have bet on us if we'd been given the ball back to go and win that game. So even with everything that happened, it was still really close.
See, that's the common assumption. The game doesn't take the natural flow. If these plays change, you get an entirely different game after it.
Of course you do, but when it happens in the first quarter, that's fair. But when it happens in the first quarter, sure, though. But when it happens in the 4th quarter quite late, there's not a lot to change. There's too many assumptions when it happens very early on, but quite late on...
I don't know. But anyhow, the special team stuff was garbage.
Yeah.
Like, we can just say it's straight up garbage. And it's been garbage for a while now. I think the trouble you have in here, and why it's regressing, is because as this team's been getting better and better, like when we first started under Dan and Brad, this team was inhibited by tons of great special teamers taking up players on the 53. And they didn't really do necessarily anything on the first team. We've seen a lot of these guys go over the years now as you get a better, deeper roster. I don't know if the talent of special teams player is available to him that he's had before. That he's used to having, especially in his linebacker, you have 3-4 aces at once upon a time, but you don't get that anymore. So I think the talent pool has dried up for him a little bit, and he's struggling to adapt. But overall, I'm struggling to explain. They look like they can't be bothered half the time, which is concerning. These are the guys who are meant to be fighting for roster spots, who are meant to be fighting for extra snaps. And given the injury history we've had, many a player has worked his way in here through special teams. And, I'm beginning to think it's a fit problem now as well. I know he's been great for years, but I think some of this is on him as well as the team, whether he's not adapting to the new rules very well, whether he just can't make anything with lesser caliber players, I don't know. But, you have this vibe now that it's like what the 2014 Tigers when they've got the best rotation of starting pitchers and they got a bullpen that shits the bed all the time and just kind of undoes all your work. That really feels like what our special teams becoming to us. It's becoming a debilitating, chronic issue, and it's very high on our list of things to sort right now, but they just don't look like they're bothered, which is really concerning.
Yeah, first off, welcome, brothers. It's taken you long enough to join me on this train. Yeah, I kind of agree. There's special teams talent. I don't know because he did rant and rave that finally he's getting wide receivers playing, and we do have some good guys. It can't just be Varkin missing with his hamstring injury. I know he was our best special teamer and arguably one of the best special teamers in the league last year. It can't just be that. We brought in Grant Stewart, who his calling card was he's a special teams ace. He's our PP. Hogan Hatton is an upgrade on Scott Daly. He's still up there. Sailors has seemingly taken over that running back special teams role as a kick return and that from Craig. We've still got most of the same guys in terms of the core ones as well. Like we've kept our core three, which is rare for teams. Most of the time they change one or the other during the off season. I just don't know whether it's we haven't adapted right to the new rules, but it is concerning because as we all know, I've seen it from fucking kick coverage 1 of the Hall of Fame game. It's been an issue. It's still an issue now, months later. And we've tried chopping and changing people. We've had Zach Cunningham here, and he was good at it, but he's got injured. So then we bring in Ty Summers as special teams ace, and it's all this. I don't know how to fix without being there and watching all these in depth and knowing what the blocking scheme is. I don't know what can change because we need to go back to what we were doing more last year, but that means we have to change some of our personnel because last year it was a lot more high linebacker focus, while this year, in terms of personnel, it's more receivers and safeties. That's why Lon Strickland have been around. That's why Nick Whiteside had our best special teams grade this past game, 75.7. Maybe it's just working some of there. It's not like you've got a guy who has played nearly 300 special team snaps in his 2 years in the league and has a very good grade in doing it. We've kept him inactive the past couple of weeks. But yeah, I just don't know. It is concerning because I keep saying, and it kind of came true with the blocked field goal this week. Special teams sometimes in some of these games where it is close, that will be that 1% that wins or loses you games. This week it definitely lost us games because the big kick turn we gave up in the first fucking quarter that gave them a short field to score their touchdown on. I think it was the Hopkinson one. The kick six that, yeah, I agree, very weak flag, but we've got some of those, so common balancing self out. They should have got an extra 6 points on the board. And then the blocked field goal. Special teams lost us this game, and that's the first time you could say that in a long while.
All right. Finally, to wrap this up, because we've gone long, but I think it deserves it. As I kind of alluded to, there's a few key plays that have lost us the game, and whether that's the Monty fumble when we're driving for the lead, whether it's the field goal to get back to within striking distance, whether it's this or that or whatever, we really, really struggled in this game. The offensive line was completely overwhelmed. The defensive line sometimes couldn't stop the run. Blah, 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 blah. We lost the game by 3. And they had to convert a third down to kill the game with about 1:40 to go. And otherwise we get the ball back driving to win the game. So given all of this, and given who the Vikings were before the start of this season, and I think people have lost sight of who the Vikings thought they were, because a lot of people came into this game trashing the Vikings, myself included, and I think I'm wrong. The Vikings thought they were a contender. All the actions they took said they were contenders. It hasn't worked to this point, but are they beyond going on a bit of a run here and really kind of being a force in this division? All of the teams in this division, in my opinion, could go for 10 wins. I genuinely think that might be on the agenda. This could be a super interesting division down the stretch as they cannibalize each other, and maybe they can beat everyone out of division, and we'll see where we get to. Ant looks alarmed. But generally speaking, the Vikings are a better team than everyone thought coming into this game. And Kevin O'Connell is just a good coach, right? And we've all lost sight of that. Given that fact, and the fact they only lost by 3, with all of the issues we've had, is the underlying factor here, we're still a really, really good team. And we're blowing this massively out of proportion, both sides of the ball, all sides of the ball.
No. I think any attempt to frame this as it's just a bad day is, pulling the wool over your eyes, ignoring a lot of serious issues this team has. Let's be honest. I mean, you've bashed the Packers all year and said how bad a team they are and how gash they are. Now all of a sudden we're talking about, oh, everyone can be a double-digit win team. We both trounced the Vikings within an inch of their life on the preview show, and I still fully stand by that prediction of them. They're not a good football team, period. They haven't been. There's holes on that roster. This was a QB starting his 3rd career game. Both his tackles were hurt. His interior offensive line's been in shambles. They had a defense that's given up a ton of points because it's a one-trick pony and can be easily taken advantage of. And you've let them come into your house and dominate you, and it's disingenuous to say it's just 3 points. Yeah, we got a touchdown late on, but all they needed was a first down to kill it. This is not like there was a lot of time on the clock left. All they needed was 1 first down. For all intents and purposes, it's a 2-score game. And, the scoreline flatters us. But there are critical problems with this team right now. Many of them. As we've mentioned, special teams, critical problem. What did we do in this game again, which we've done all season? We got a turnover. Terrian's first turnover. We've not done stock up and down here. Terrian, wonderful turnover. One of the best I've seen, what he was able to wrestle that thing off of him. What did we do with that turnover? We went for -1 yard and we punted it. I am getting fed up of this team getting turnovers and doing nothing with it. Not being able to change the momentum in games. Not being able to stick the dagger in where it hurts. We are a Super Bowl caliber team. We are a good team. I think we are a good team. It is not acting like a good team. It is not acting like someone who is ruthless and vicious and goes out there and makes teams pay. We let them get right back into this game after getting an opening drive touchdown, and we've done that with too many teams. We let them hang. We let them hang. We let them impose their will on us. We act like we're the team who's not as good as what they are. Our offense is indecisive. It's in its shell. It's not playing with any form of bravery whatsoever, apart from apparently when we get to 4th down, when we become the best team in the league. That's not sustainable, playing that well on 4th down all the time. There are glaring issues with this team that are not going away. And the biggest one for me, as I've alluded to all the thing, is the mentality of this team. When they are asked to play like a contender and they're asked to act like they're not an underdog and that they need to change this mentality, they come up short. This was an opportunity to put them away for good this year, ruin their season, and take one team out of this NFC North race. And we just laid over and acted like we didn't know how to play football. This is not a 3-point defeat that can be explained just by it being a bad day. There are a lot of fundamental issues with this team that need to be answered, and trying to pretend that it's just 3 points and everything's fine is incredibly disingenuous. This is a concerning defeat. Make no bones about it. And it doesn't mean I'm negative and I'm like 97.1 and the world's falling in. I am just being realistic, as I always am, and speaking from the heart. These are issues which have been festering for a while, and now they're at a point where I can feel safe in saying these are real issues.
You're not being negative, I completely agree. The special teams thing, as you said, that's been since the Hall of Fame game. What I think this game's done is, because it's a Division 1 and it's a kind of shock, we're coming out to bye and the issues are still there. It's just putting them to the nth degree because they all added up. We lost this game. And the thing is, because then there's all added issues now with the offensive line injuries. Like, Dan's not sure we'll have Deku and Saul for Sunday, which I know the Commanders have lost their best pass rusher with Ditch Quays and that, but we saw what they did to us last year when they were missing some players as well. These issues are starting to stack up, and the longer that we kind of let us be there and linger and fester, and we add more issues on top, we do go from fulfilling our destiny of being a contender, of being a team that's contending in the NFC Championship game, potentially a Super Bowl, and that we've become more like the Packers in the playoffs, where, oh yeah, they do great in the regular season, and then they get bounced by the Cowboys or the 49ers. I don't want that for us. But at the same time, I can't sit here and be like, I know how to fix all these issues, because some of them are well above my pay grade. How do we fix the run game? Because, I love Hank Fraley to bits for what he's done to this offensive line. The run game is mostly his thing. I know it's by title now, but he's been the run game coordinator for the past couple of seasons by all intents and purposes. For the most part, it seems that he does the run game stuff. Morton does the pass game stuff. And they put it together with Dan and that and Goff and work it out. There's been issues there. The issues with connection with JMO. I know he had the great touchdown this week, but there was another miscue between him and Goff on the first row at his first target. There's issues there. Getting Tesla involved, getting Khalif involved. Like, we heard in training camp that, Khalif was keeping all these guys out by virtue, and he was offering another field spreading option on the outside. So then we could use JMO more, the sort of shorter stuff. We're not just using him as a clear out route. We haven't really seen that. We haven't seen Tesla, aside from his amazing 2 catches, which again is a victim of himself by making them. And suddenly everyone's expectations are sky high for him. He's been a non-factor on offense recently. Monty, what the fuck's happened with him? Like, I love him to pieces, and I get his role as the sort of grind him down back, but the fact it's just consistently 2 yards from him, it feels like, and I hate to say this because, again, I love Monty to bits, it feels like we had Adrian Peterson and everyone fucking knew as soon as he's on the field, it's going to be a halfback dive in one of the A gaps and he'll get you 2-3 yards. And that's all it was. We're not using him well enough for what he's supposed to be for us. And then defensively, Hutch is doing amazing. The linebackers, for the most part, they're having 3 good games and 1 bad game. This was another relatively okay game for them, but obviously the Chiefs game exists. We're patching up the secondary and hopefully they get healthier, but there are still some issues there in terms of giving up the big plays to running backs. And that we do allow quite a few explosives. And then special teams, the coverage teams, it needs sorting out. And that's a load of things to add on top of all the injuries that happens and all the stuff that, sometimes you just get bad calls in the games. I know we haven't really mentioned it. We've mentioned it in sort of passing, but some of the calls the refs gave on both sides, obviously with the kick 6, but the roughing the passer stuff where you can clearly see Campbell laying out his hand to not pull the full weight of McCarthy, and that gets thrown, but Goff gets absolutely levered, and that blitzer doesn't do that, and it's not called. Stuff like that. All those issues just stuck on top, and I think this is the one now where suddenly, it's broke it, because the Vikings were not supposed to be good. Starting a rookie QB in inverted commas behind offensive, coming off a high ankle sprain against a defense that looked fucking great against Baker Mayfield. Like, Baker right now is 10 times the QB that JJ McCarthy is. I'm not saying McCarthy can turn out to be better, but if you had to choose a QB right now, you're choosing Baker. We made Baker look like a fool, and yet we made JJ McCarthy look like an amazing QB. It's just, they need to have a sit down and sort these things out, because we might be able to get away with another couple. Like the Commanders, they're going to be starting Marcus Mariota, their defense spanked up, all this. We might be able to scrape one. But then you've got Philly, the Packers again. God, I know it's looking ahead, but we could get to that Rams game, and that could honestly decide whether we make the playoffs or not. And that's scary, because the Rams are a good fucking team. And if we do still have these issues, I know better than anyone what Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, and Kobe Turner can do to your offense. And we all know what Stafford and Nakua can do to you. We need to get this sorted soon, because the mentality very much is, you play your best football in December, January, February, but you need to make sure that you're able to. We need to make sure we're still in the dance come the end of December. And right now, I'm not saying we're not going to make the playoffs, but if teams are able to pick on our issues and do what the Vikings did to us yesterday, we're putting ourselves in danger of missing out in the playoffs, because we shoot ourselves in the foot.
All right. I'm going to draw the conversation to a close there and just go stock up, stock down. We've talked about the game a lot, so I think we should potentially keep this a little brief. Who wants to give a shout out for anyone playing well this week? The silence is deafening.
Well, obviously, because the obvious one was taken with Arnold and OPFF, as you said, didn't like him, but great heads-up play from him to get the interception. And I know they're crediting with a really bad run defense grade, but I think he made some good plays in the run game, sort of keeping his edge contained and making sure nothing got outside of him. And then he did make a couple of tackles there. So yeah, it's a nice back game from him, considering he was coming off the shoulder injury and then he left with the back injury. He did pretty well. Hopefully he can build on that. And we do get the TA we were hearing about in camp, because that will be useful.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think offensively, I would give it to Penne, given he was hurt, he was not at his best, he was still dominant. Nothing came through him in a game where that entire line fell to pieces. Penne continued to be an absolute brick for us. I think he showed a lot of courage there. I liked what I saw from him. He's never going to give up for this team, and that's what we need right now. Defensively, you know what? I'll give it Barnes. Barnes is getting better and better. Another sack for him. Like he's starting to nail that position down now and what it's all about. And I think our increased pass rush presence, guys like Lacey got another one, and I think it's because of guys like Barnes who are now providing that extra pressure on these guys, which are allowing more opportunities for guys like Lacey, etc., to make plays. We're seeing really what we missed with him last year, and we're seeing what we've paid him for. He's become a pivotal part of the defense again very quickly. He's playing some of his best football he ever has. So, certainly, D Barnes going to be up there for me.
The only one for me on offense who deserves some love really is Laporta, who I thought was excellent all the way through the game. He proved himself to be an excellent outlet on the first drive, and then we went away from him. And I don't really get it, but he was always open, seemed to be the guy that we really trusted in those key moments, and he delivered. Long may that continue. I've got no one else. Just Laporta. That's the only guy I want to shout out.
I mean,
Campbell for lawn darting a human being into JJ McCarthy.
That was funny.
You get a shout out for that play alone. That was just so funny. I wonder what the hell had happened to JJ initially. I'm like, I was just had a human thrown at him. That would be my reaction as well.
I mean, he didn't. I know he only played 14 snaps in relief and some stuff, but Skipper looked okay in pass pro.
Skipper looked fine, actually.
Yeah.
Of all of the offensive line players who really struggled in this game, he didn't.
Exactly. Which is we fucking need that to continue this weekend, it seems. But
yeah. All right, stock down then.
Graham. I'm not going to rag on him here, but I will a bit, but I think why we've been so good against the Vikings in recent years and why, we've dealt so well with the blitz, and this comes back to the whole thing about having a bona fide specialist center at the point. I think Ragnow was a big part of the reason that the line was so good, being able to pick up all these little things that the Vikings defense doesn't adapt to it. Having a guy who's cerebral like him in that center position is massive for us, and not having him there, it felt at times like Graham was overwhelmed. Obviously, he's working with rookies, which is not easy for him, but it's not allowing him to focus on his game first and foremost, and a lot of pressure came through that interior. And I think it's really starting to be noticeable now, the lack of a true center of this team, especially against a scheme like Flores, as you've got to have a high IQ tactician leading that offensive line, and we didn't have that here. And I think it's, when the season's done, it's going to be time to move on from him. But it wasn't his greatest day again. And obviously when the center falls, the whole offense falls.
I don't want to rag on him too much because he's only just come back from injury, but The guy that suffered the most in the interior of the defensive line was Lee McNeil. He got pushed back 3-4 yards often, and it hurt us. And I would have liked to have seen us adjust by not playing in 51 of 62 snaps. That's not the winning way to play a defensive tackle, even when they're fully healthy. Put him in a position to win. And if he's suffering, he's only just come back. Let him go on the bench for a while. Like, we misused him, but I still have to say I thought he did a bad game, because he did.
Yeah. In a similar vein, Mollett, I know he gave up the big thing. He was good in tackling and run defense, but he gave up the big pass and coverage that extended their first drive and got them into the touchdown range. I know he's a fill-in and that, but it's obvious that we just alluded to earlier. We need DJ Reed back so we can put a Meek there, or we can put Branch there. We just need someone out Kirby and DJ Reed to be back, so we don't have to play him in that situation, because it's just unfair to him being matched up against Jordan Addison in a slot fade. They knew that play was going to work, because it just will. Addison, as much as we don't like him for the off the field stuff, he's a damn good receiver, and it was just poor to put Mollett in that situation. But at the same time, you're there, make a play on the ball, do something to try and break up the pass, because that really helped them.
This is probably going to be the only time in my life I ever utter these words. It's going to be a very rare occurrence. But Jameer was awful as a runner and as a pass protector. I thought some of the decisions he made on some of his runs wasn't great. Not like him. And the pass protecting, how the hell as a running back do you give up 7 pressures in a game? Like, what was that? First time since 2018 it's happened or something like that. And again, I found umbrage with the fact that they'd have him in for a full drive, then get into the red zone and ask him to work in pass protection when he's cast, and Monty sat there doing nothing. I think it's ridiculous. And again, it's eating into this narrative of why I'm not sure Monty's staying on the bench. I mean, even with Monty's fumbling is not something Monty does. He doesn't have a fumble issue. Like, it's not something that's big with his game that he gives up the ball all the time, and yet you're sitting him on the bench, and you've just, by not using Monty, you're exposing Jameer more, and I think you're starting to see him wear down a little now, because we're not using Monty in the same guise, and we need to redress the balance here. And we need to get Monty out there more, and we need to stop asking so much of Jameer all the time. Because I think it's genuinely affecting him. He looked gassed on some of the plays where he was just getting trucked by big 230-pound linebackers and stuff like that. And it's like, you can't blame him. But it was a poor game from him.
Yeah. Rewinding's like 15 minutes ago and also like 25 hours ago. Because build on your point, and start doing more rotations in drives. Don't just do the whole, you have one drive. Rotate them in the drive, because it mixes things up. Because, when Monty's only playing 24 snaps, but Gibbs is playing 42, well, that's an imbalance. I thought the whole point is you have a two-headed backfield, so neither one's overplayed much. You have them both fresh for the playoffs in the future. I know Gibbs is the talented, all-top best running back in the league, except for that's obviously Jonathan Taylor right now, but part of that reason he was so good last season is because we had Monty there and we used them pretty much both equally. The split has very much gone into Gibbs' favour and it's not working, so adjust back. Bring Monty in for using him in the pass games with alertings up the box, etc., etc. But it's just, again, they targeted Gibbs with their blitzes as well, which didn't help him in pass pro. As soon as they saw him back, and they're like, okay, it's going to be a passing play blitz, because stops him getting in space and being that check down option that could turn what would be a sack or a throwaway into a 5-yard gain that keeps us in front of the sticks. Just, they targeted him, the Vikings did. It's sad because they knew he could kill him, because he did it twice last season in both games. And so they took him out of the game.
All right. We are going to talk about the rest of the weekend's games, but we're going to do it on YouTube and Twitch only for the audio pod, on a bid to keep this show a little bit shorter. We're going to wrap this up now, having gone for just over 2 hours. So our next show is going to be the College Football Podcast, coming up later on this week, looking back at Week 10, ahead to Week 11, as normal. And also, what was it? And it was looking at one team in each conference that surprised us positively.
Yes, we're giving love.
Focus.
There's a lot of actual teams who are doing really well this year, which no one are talking about. And I was looking at it earlier, so I'm like, we're going to try and deep dive as to why some of these usually bad teams are doing so well.
The Cavaliers?
Yes, Virginia is one of them. Virginia is one of them.
The next show on the Lions podcast is not going to be Thursday, at least not with me on it, because I'm not here on Thursday. I will be doing my rest, repping my company at an awards ceremony. So we're going to have to talk about when exactly we can do the Washington Commanders preview or have a chat with the guys. It might be without me on Thursday. I'm not sure. But anyway, we'll chat with amongst ourselves, and then of course we'll just schedule up the show so you guys know when exactly it is. If you're not sure and you want to catch us live, just have a look at our YouTube channel. We should normally schedule them well in advance. Sorry, American audience, schedule them well in advance. So check that out. You'll see when we're coming. Otherwise, socials, you know where to find us. Roar the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and the Facebook group for worldwide fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide. Ash's preview articles on rotluk.com. Please subscribe, rate us 5 stars, show us some love. This is one of the better shows I think we've done in terms of actually talking about the team as opposed to the game, which we normally focus on. So I hope you enjoyed a little bit more of a deep dive. Enjoy the rest of your week. We're going to come back strong. 6-3 against the Commanders. In this team we trust. Let's go, Lions. One Pride.
One Pride.
One Pride.
Recording stopped.
That One Pride was weak. Right. Rest of the weekend's games. Potentially in brief, because we've been here a while anyway. Start with Thursday Night Football. Seahawks. No, that is not what happened, because I have the wrong link. Week 9. Thursday Night Football was the Ravens blowing away the Dolphins. Why on earth that didn't get flexed, boys, I don't know. The battle of 2 win teams. But you know what? The Ravens are back.
Yep. And God help us next week over here when Bills Fins is the big game day, whatever it's called, bloody game on 6 o'clock.
Big game night in the UK.
Yeah.
Big game night is an oxymoron in terms of it's not big and let's not watch this game.
Yes.
And it's also,
Exactly.
It's not night in the UK because it's 6 o'clock. It's early evening at best. And it's not night in the US either. So it fails on multiple counts.
Yes.
Never mind the fact it just sucks as a program. Anyway.
The Ravens have got, like, I hate the fact the Ravens have got such an easy schedule to get their results back up to 500 again. Like, this was a team that's going to this is a team fighting for number 1 in the draft versus a, potential Super Bowl contender, and they acted and played like it. It was boring. It was not worthy of a primetime matchup. But Miami get rid of the GM instead of the head coach, which is an odd one. Like, they don't care about playing for McDaniel no more. So why drag it out? Why drag it out?
Man walking. Sorry. I didn't know whether that translated or not.
No.
No, dead man walking, I said.
Oh yeah, he's gone. They're probably just going to wait till the end of the year, but he's gone.
He gone. Next up, Bears-Bengals, the battle of the 89 points. The Bengals had it won eventually and then had it lost again almost as quickly. They stopped playing defense with a minute to go. Like, why? Did you hear about the infighting afterwards? It was absolutely incredible. The Bengals are properly disintegrating in front of our eyes.
I half wish we could bet that Bengals Cowboys was on the sort of schedule for this season, because would we have a 100 points NFL game?
Yeah.
I think between them two.
Absolutely we would.
I just feel sorry for Joe Flacco. Like, the guy has a career game and, like, he still loses. It's you know what, this made my already bad mood even worse. This did. I at least thought the Bengals were going to bail us out and we could laugh at the Bears for losing. Like, thank you to another team that did that for us, but it was awful. They should be selling like crazy. That game should be, if they had any sort of inkling that they could compete in the AFC North this year, that game should tell them, no, you're not even close. Start selling, boys, because no one cares no more. But the D lineman just sort of going, yeah, see you Monday, after giving up 50 points to the Bears. It's just like, wow, what a shoddy culture you've got there.
I am here for the Carmanon guy, 176-yard rushing performance.
No, he's dead to me. I love him, but he's dead to me. He plays for that franchise. He's dead.
I don't hate the players, I just hate the team. That goes for pretty much everyone apart from Aaron Rodgers. I very much hate the player. Anyway, I don't wish death on any player. Almost any player. We talked Vikings Lions at length. Panthers beat the Packers 16-13, and you must have died of happiness.
Yes, I did. I love them. They are my second team now. I'm vicariously living through the Panthers after this week, but I mean, 5-4, we're seeing it. Like, it was with us. Like, a lot of people were doubting them, but you could see the performances were gradually getting better. And I think with Bryce, he just needed a few good performances to instill that confidence in himself. He now believes he's an NFL quarterback. I mean, you can get drafted into the NFL, but I think every player has that moment when they realize when they belong, and they play so much more freely because of that. And you know, statistically, not the greatest game of his life, and Rico Dowdle did a lot of the work for this, but he still had to lead them on clutch drives, get them into positions to be able to go and win it, and obviously helped get them into position for the walk-off field goal. And that's justice. That's justice for the most horrendous uniforms in the history of the NFL. Those Packers throwbacks are disgusting. They look like they're wearing basketballs on their head. One of them was wearing the old, the new style mushroom-like ones as well in basketball form. He looked like he got a basketball afro. They are the most disgusting uniforms of all time. They deserve to lose that game, and I'm just so glad it was the Panthers that did it. But my prediction, the Panthers will win the NFC South, is looking pretty damn good right now, and I think they can make a title. They can make a challenger to Tampa this year.
Yeah, I'm happy as well. Rico Dowdle, Ted McMillan, I'm here for, and Fitzy. Obviously, I know he missed an extra point. We got blocked, but for him to kick the winning field goal, I think he currently leads the league this season in game-winning field goals, which I'm definitely here for.
Next up, Chargers just about put away the Titans, but the Titans played them bloody close most of the game. And you know what? The Titans had only 233 yards of gross offense in the game. Now, the Chargers were obviously hurt by the fact that Joe Alt was out midway through the game, and he is now done for the season, so both of their starting tackles are done. Aronde Gadsden led the team in receiving again, so the Chargers finding success through the tight ends. This was such a weird game because the Titans, as a one-win team, should not be giving someone like the Chargers problems, but they hung around.
They didn't have an offensive touchdown, though.
True. So I see you saying that's now made the facts pop into my head that the Packers did not punt once and yet only scored 13 points. Just want to go back to that and tie this to this. But yeah, the Chargers won, but what a cost, obviously, with now Joe Alt having season-ending ankle surgery. So Justin Herbert is back to running behind his offensive line like for his life, and it pretty much is. But at least at the end of the day, he gets to go home in Madison Beer and soothe his wounds and go to nice Halloween parties and basketball games. So, he can grow and cry into his bed of money and be a happy boy. But yeah, fair play to the Titans for at least hanging around before Cam Ward had some dumbass plays like running into Tony Pollard with the ball and that. Like, there's the Cam I remember from Miami screwing up some games.
I genuinely feel sorry for him. Like, he's just been thrown to a pack of rabid wolves while greased up in bacon fat, and like that's he's just been left there to die. It's such a shame. And again, like 20 points and your offense gets none of them basically. Like, what was it, a punt return tutty and a pick six or something like that. Like, the Titans, they're just a disgusting brand of offensive football. They always have been for as long as I can imagine, and it's not going to change. until they invest in protecting Cam and that. Cam's about to go through the Bryce Young phase where everybody writes him off, says he's a bust and he's terrible, and hopefully, like Cam, he will rebound when this team is better. But right now, yeah, they look like a number 1 overall pick team. Titans do.
Next game. Falcons, Patriots. Patriots 1 point victors 24-23, only after the Falcons miss the PAT to tie the game in the fourth quarter. And the Patriots were 14 points ahead twice in this game. That is not accurate. 14 and then 10 points ahead in this game. Ahead for all of it, never looked in trouble, and suddenly it was close and it should have been tied up. But another good game by Drake May.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Penix had a bit of a day, though. 22 of 37, 221, 3 touchdowns, no picks. That's an improvement from him. But that's about as much as I can say. Travion Henderson getting the most carries is a definite improvement for the Pats generally. But, interesting, entertaining game.
Yeah, both teams just tried to shut down and said, as we tried to do, like, oh yeah, pieces through the air, and led to a good game. Like, yeah, Henderson didn't look too efficient, but Terrell Jennings, the guy they called off practice squad, also looked okay. Drake May did what he needs to do on the ground. The opposite side, Bijan, not efficient. Penix did what he needs to do on the ground. Algier, not efficient, but only got 2 carries. It was very much a beat through the air game, and it was a duel. It was fun to watch. Shamari Douglas, 100 yards. Hunter Henry's still there. Henderson got some through the air. And then Drake London just showing why he's the Falcons' best receiver, and will be until they finally get rid of Cole Pitts. What a dumbass pick that was, with him not even crossing 40 yards in this game, and that's with a longer 22. Just absolute duel. Good defense and run defense. Good passing. Fun game it was a fun game to keep an eye on at the corner of my eye, because obviously my love for Drake May will never die.
I just want to pass on my best wishes and thoughts to the Atlanta Falcons UK guys, because I am genuinely concerned about them and the memes they've been posting in recent weeks about that team and what it's doing to their mental health. I believe today was a picture of a Falcon getting hung from the top of Mercedes-Benz Stadium, saying that's how they felt at this point, because that's what this team is doing to them. So, look, guys, keep going strong. You'll come out the other end better for this. It's tough. I think they're playing Germany next week, which is why they're so eat up, because they're going to go and watch them. But yeah, the Falcons fans are not in a good place right now, because they were expected to, be right up there in the NFC South this year, and they're not, and they look like an absolutely atrocious team right now. I know the Pats are on a good run this year, but you should be beating them if you're the Falcons, and I don't think they've washed out that Panthers loss yet, but. Yeah, they are not a happy bunch over there right now. In fact, I think they're podcasting at the minute. It would be interesting to go and watch it, but you think we're doom and gloom today, go and watch them. It's not pretty.
Next up, 49ers against the Giants. 34-24 victors for the 49ers. Features an incredible throw for a touchdown by Jackson Dart. Absolute bullet. I mean, he was 24 of 33 for only 191, 2 touchdowns, no picks, but he continues to look like he belongs at this realm. So much more, I think, than he did at college. I think he belongs in the NFL. But I loved this game just because Mac Jones took himself out of the game. He volunteered to leave the game so Adrian Martinez could take his first NFL snap to take the kneel down for the victory formation. Like, that's just cool, man. Especially as Martinez, a former Lions quarterback, kind of warmed my heart a little bit. Yeah,
completely agree. And again, the Theo Johnson connections there. I do wish they would use our guy a bit more than we liked in the that draft class. But it is what it is. The funny thing is, I'm just looking at a thing, and I know they're trying to get some trade bait with Jalen Hyatt. It would be useful if he actually had some stats, for people to see. Oh yeah, that's what he's doing. Let's see how he looks. No. Not even a target. Great work, Dable. But to quote the meme, put the team on his back, led him in passing and rushing, because Singletary and Tyron Tracy, you could see why Cam Scott-Obo was needed there, because I do like Tyron Tracy. He's a third down sort of scat back kind of guy. He's not a guy who can carry the load, and Singletary's washed. So when Dart, who's not really, I think it's not like Lamar mobility. He can move, but he's not supposed to be, like a true Russian QB. He's leading the team, not good. But on the other side, Jesus, if Jonathan Taylor wasn't doing what he was doing in Indianapolis, Christian McCaffrey's making real play for Offensive Player of the Year. Nearly just over 100 yards on the ground, nearly 70 through the air. He is that team right now on offense.
You know what? No one's talking about Mac Jones though. Like, I know they are a system to make any quarterback look good, but I think he was like 16 of 16 to start this game or something like that. Like, he was on a huge streak to start it off, and he seems to be flourishing there. No one's talking. He's probably going to get himself another shot somewhere if he carries on playing like this and he gets many more opportunities to. But if you needed any more belief that they are entirely a system-based, for a quarterback, and you want to call them system-based and they don't have to be good, that is it. He looked like an absolute world beater for them.
Next up, the Colts at the Steelers. Steelers beat the previously one-loss Colts 27-20. Daniel Jones, 31 of 50 for 342, 1 touchdown, 3 picks. This was a game where the Steelers defense utterly dominated, and for all the heat that the Pittsburgh defense has got, especially the front, they really came to play in this game. And when it comes together for the Steelers defense, it looks pretty damn good. The 3 interceptions were shed out by Peyton Wilson, Jack Sawyer, and Joey Porter Jr. The thing about Indy is that it's easy to say take away the interceptions and it all looks fine, but they didn't look like a bad team in the mix of doing all of this. And, down the stretch, looked like they might even get back to tie the game before things went south. So, the Steelers had to play bloody well to only kind of just win this game. And in some ways, as long as Daniel Jones doesn't look at this game and kind of go, oh, I can't do it anymore, and regress into his former self, this actually feels like a really positive loss in the most bizarre sense.
I don't know if this is just me, but underneath that entire monologue there, I had this sort of smug satisfaction that the Colts would lose and that me and Ash couldn't gloat about the Colts this week. I could hear it. It was subtle, but it was there.
And
Yeah.
And Ash, what did I say during the live about the Colts?
Yeah, I know. I because I did make a similar comment, and it was like he does think they're good. It's just he didn't believe that. He doesn't believe that Daniel Jones is real, but he believes the Colts are real.
Yeah, and I stand by that.
Yeah, and the proof of that is the big thing that I kind of agree, Matt. The wrong thing I disagree with is this is what happens when you shut Jonathan Taylor down.
Yes, true.
He didn't even cross 60 yards, and suddenly I know still put up 20, which is fucking good. Is really damn good, but that's how the Pittsburgh Steelers hung around. They just like, right, take Jonathan Taylor out of the game, try and force Daniel Jones to beat us himself, and this happens.
I mean, the funny thing about this game is Jonathan Taylor only had 45 yards on the ground, but that outgained the entire Pittsburgh running game.
Yeah, exactly.
It is so bizarre. It's a game. Jaylen Warren had 2 rushing touchdowns, but didn't break 2 yards a carry. And he had a long of 8. Like, what are we doing here? Weird game. Fun game, 100%. Weird game.
The NC State legend Peyton Wilson becoming a legend in the NFL, and I just love to see it. Love to see these Wolfpack, getting where they need to.
If Peyton Wilson stays fit for all of his career, which we know is the issue with him, he could be the successor to the league's best linebackers. Genuinely is going to be up there talked about with the likes of Roquan Smith and people like that.
Bad.
Next up, Broncos put away the Texans 18-15. CJ Stroud with a pretty horrible looking injury. Davis Mills takes 30 dropbacks in this game, which is not exactly a recipe for success. But the Houston defense plays so well that the Broncos have to score an 8-pointer late on and then get a field goal to win, and really look like they were struggling doing it. Bo Nix with a heck of a good throw for that touchdown late to tie the game up. But Man, it looked for all the world as though a Davis Mills-led Texans team was going to get the win here.
How is it that Bo Nix is becoming a QB that if you're down in the fourth quarter, he's the one that you want to be your QB? The amount of fourth quarter comebacks that Bo Nix has led for this fucking Broncos team is insane. It seems he's allergic. He's allergic to the first quarter, and when it comes to the fourth quarter, he just turns into the ultimate QB. It's insane. It's just mad. But fair play to the guy. And then obviously, CJ Stroud with obviously your concussion, because that's what roughing the passer looks like, guys.
Nothing, Ant?
No, because I know who knocked out CJ Stroud, and we're just not going to have that conversation. So,
All right.
I forgot who what was.
Yeah, I can't remember.
it was Abrams' drain.
The
better,
of course it was.
the better Missouri. That's why I was doing a countdown on my hand. I thought, how many seconds is it going to take him to mention Abrams' drain knocking out CJ
I
Stroud?
actually forgot because I saw it and I was going to say it yesterday. It's went my mind.
Soon as I saw it, I thought, oh fuck, that's going to get mentioned to me at some point. The better Missouri corner, Chris Abrams' drain, but I was watching it in the background and it was awful. It was absolutely atrocious, this game was. And what's funny, did they actually, because we were doing the over-unders the other week when doing previews, and we said, why is a game with CJ Stroud and Bo Nix got the lowest over-under in the league this weekend? But they might not have actually hit that over-under.
Yeah,
Were they below?
They didn't hit it because it was it 36
38.
points or 38?
It's 38 and a half.
And they're 33, so they comfortably didn't make it.
That's crazy. That is crazy. You wouldn't think those two would ever be in a game which give you 33 points, but, well, obviously one got hurt, but still, I don't think they were going to make it anyhow. It was not a good game before he got hurt.
Right. One of the worst games I've ever seen, and it wasn't in London. Jags beat the Raiders in overtime 30-29, which went into the fourth quarter. Was it 9-3 to the Raiders?
9-6.
9-6. Oh my God. I mean, this is just so rough. Credit the Raiders for going for 2 to win the game in overtime. Mm-hmm. That's the shit we like to see. Nothing like the bloody Cowboys and Packers earlier on the season who just kick a PAT because they're both pussies. Sorry. Had to say it. You've got to throw the jabs in where you can against your two bigger rivals. But yeah, boys, I don't really want to talk about this game particularly, so does anyone have anything to say about it?
Brock Bowers is going to go into the Hall of Fame as the greatest tight end of all time. And I'm not actually being hyperbolic here. His one catch that he had, there was one, and I think I commented on the thing, it was fucking ridiculous. This one-handed scoop grab while he's falling. And I think the commentator actually used the phrase clap cheeks when describing how he landed in the end zone, because he landed on his arse to get in there, and he used the term clap cheeks, and I burst out laughing. But Brock Bowers, if he stays healthy for his career, is going to go down as one of the greatest Titans of all time. The man is phenomenal. He has something that no other tight end in this league has. There's just a gravitas about him, and even on this awful Raiders team, he's amazing. He will get traded one day. He will go somewhere, win a whole bunch of Super Bowls, and he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Easy peasy.
Love it.
Oh, now because what I've got in my mind is him as the solid snake meme, and it's him calling Pete Carroll's like, I keep alerting the DBs because my ass is dummy thick. It's just going through my head now, for fuck's sake. I don't know what to say other than that, other than maybe this is why two tight end personnel works. Because I know everyone's like, oh, they should trade Mayer. This is why they keep him around. They play a lot of two tight end swings, and it just allows so many mismatches for Bowers. It's insane. As much as we hate Pete Carroll, that's the one thing he's got works out. He just gets so many good matchups for Bowers.
Oh, and now you've mentioned two sets. this is for another Lions podcast at some point, but why the fuck are the Lions not using more 2 running back sets? I want to know
I love
that.
how we just keep coming
we didn't
back
even
to
get
that.
back to that conversation, but we will continue to hammer on Bob Morton at some point. But that just reminded me of that, so thank you, Ash.
You're welcome.
The lack of 2 running back sets is starting to piss me off as well. So I'm still finding ways to be annoyed. I'm sure I'm not on my own in that thing. I reckon the chat
give
would
me
agree
more
with
Parcel.
me. And yeah,
Everyone wants pony personnel.
Right, Saints at Rams. Rams 34-10 victors. Matthew Stafford 24-32, 281, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Kyron Williams 25 for 114 and a touchdown. Puka Nacua is him, although injured again. And Devontae Adams is also him. The Saints are
say it with
bad.
me, Matt. Say it with me, Matt. The New Orleans Saints are the worst team of all time. Say it with me. Or one of the worst teams of all time. They're the worst team in the NFL right now. Say it with me.
Yes,
the New Orleans Saints are the worst team in the NFL right now. Repeat it after me.
The New Orleans Saints are the worst team of the season so far, for sure. No doubt.
There we go. We can clip that.
Have I been particularly high on the Saints?
Every time I've tried to insult them in the past, you insist there's something there with them, so...
I will say they look worse with Shook at quarterback.
Oh, I thought you looked alright.
It doesn't look as good as what they have on the bench.
You mean Taysom Hill? Because he went over for 1.
Yeah. Fun. Right. Less said, the better. They're still a 1-win team, which means they're 1 win better than some teams have been ever. But anyway.
True. I mean, with Devontae, I think it was his 2nd touchdown catch. He had the stat that was like, of his last 5 catches, 3 of them were for touchdowns. That's insane.
In the late window, we had Chiefs at Bills. Bills win 28-21. I think it's basically as simple as Josh Allen had a day, Patrick Mahomes had his worst day, and James Cook is still really fucking good.
And Kincaid, but I will steal it from Ant before he says it. Doesn't matter because when they actually play a game that does matter in the playoffs, Mahomes will win.
He knew. He just teed that one up for him there. You just teed that one up for him. Yeah, that's my thing. It's true though. Like Ash is 100% right. This win means nothing for the Buffalo Bills because they're going to do it in the playoffs. Although, what are the Chiefs sitting at now? 5-4. Yeah. When do we start talking about the Chiefs as potentially not making the playoffs? Is that a conversation we could legitimately have?
No, because
they've still got to play the Broncos, don't they? The Broncos have beaten them already.
Broncos, I guess they'll probably make it as a wild card.
They'll get a wild card.
Yeah, they'll make. Yeah,
and then they'll have. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Because you think about the rest of it, the Broncos win their division, but the Chiefs make us a wild card. It will be Bills and Patriots from the East. The North, honestly, probably the Ravens. And then the South, you'll probably get the Colts. Honestly, other than maybe the Broncos and the Bills, and I guess the Ravens, depending on their day, you'd probably favour the Chiefs over all of them, at least half of them. And then they start getting on that roll, and if things happen, and suddenly, as you know it, they're back in the fucking Super Bowl again.
Yeah. And they've not played the Broncos yet.
I thought the Broncos beat them earlier this year.
No, they lost to the Chargers and the Eagles for the first 2 games of the year, and then they lost to the Jags before losing this week to the Bills. They've got at Broncos after their bye, which is next week. And then, Colts at Cowboys, Texans, Chargers, Titans, Broncos at Raiders to finish. So
they'll lose to the Broncos. They'll lose to the Colts.
They could lose to the Cowboys on form.
It's in Dallas. Legitimate conversation. Although it would be funny is like the Bills get the 1 seed or whatever, and Kansas goes to Buffalo and beats them again. That's just what they do. That's just.
All right. What else do we have? One more game. Sunday Night Football. Seahawks beat Commanders 38-14. Features a horrible looking injury for Jaden Daniels. Sam Darnold is unrecognizable compared to, the season before we went to Minnesota. 21 of 24, 330, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. I mean, he's brilliant. But I mean, I tell you what, Jackson Smith and Jigba is the best receiver in the league.
Yeah. It helps. That's what's helped Darnold throw a golf. Darnold had more touchdowns than he did incompletions. I think he broke the Seahawks record. It definitely got close to breaking the NFL record, I think. But no, he definitely broke the Seahawks record for most consecutive completions to start a game.
See, this is really weird for me because I'm pretty sure I've got the Seahawks to win that division this year, to much chagrin. But I can't help feel they scream fraud to me. There's something that's not sitting right. Like, obviously they've beaten, but the Commanders are beat up to high heaven. I don't know. There's just something screaming to me that they're better on paper than what they actually are right now. But I'll take it. I'll take them winning. I'll take them winning it.
I potentially thought that was the case until I saw the Tampa Bay game. And I think even though they lost that game, it confirmed to me that they were for real. Because that's a legit defense they went up against, and Darnold shredded them.
They might do. It's just, it's vibes. It's vibes with them. It's the vibe I'm getting on. They're not quite there. I mean, what have they done? Texans, Jags, Bucks, Saints, Cards, Steelers. It's not the most intimidating of schedules. Maybe when we get some better quality opposition in there. They play the Rams in a couple of weeks. I think that'll be a big one. They can go beat the Rams, then you can convince me that you're for real.
Fair. Good shout. Right, that's all the games recapped. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Get well, Jaden Daniels. That was horrific to watch.
Yeah, you don't want to ever see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's nasty. I want to play him. The only way the Lions will win a Super Bowl is by playing every team at full strength and getting tested to the complete and utter, to the limit. We're not going to get that now. We're going to get a very beaten up Washington team, which for me now just screams danger. Because Mariota is the exact type of quarterback who we've struggled with in recent years.
Yes.
Not much so in recent times. I feel like we've been better against the statues, but he's still got weapons there. And he still can sling a few darts on you. And this is the kind of game you get nothing for winning other than well done for doing your job. And you've got everything to lose. So, I'm not looking forward to it in the slightest. But yeah, to Jaden, get better soon. I'd rather you be playing and we beat you that way.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for a great show. Thank you for listening. We'll see you later on in the week. For now, let's go Lions, one pride.
One pride.